What's up? Ghost Fictions is here, and we're back again. This is a story where Issei was adopted by Odin and had a massive harem with Rossweisse. Issei and his parents moved to Scandinavia, but that same night they are attacked, with Issei being the only survivor. He manages to escape and is saved by a grandmother and her granddaughter. What does the future hold for him? But before we start, please consider subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Don't forget to check the description for more informations. Also, this is a translate version, you may find some mistakes, specifically in the character's gender. Issei of course is a male, this time, no changes in the gender. Welp, with that out, let's get into the story. Chapter 1. Prologue. It was an ordinary day in Japan, the land of the rising sun. It was a weekend where parents and their children enjoyed themselves in the park, laughing and playing. However, back home in Kuo City, a family was moving. This family was the Hyoudou family, and the reason for their move was that Mr. Hyoudou had been transferred to the new headquarters of the company he worked for, which was located in Scandinavia. While Mr. and Mrs. Hyoudou were packing their suitcases, three little girls were talking to their son, Issei Hyoudou, who, like the girls, looked like one of them. "Isn't there any way you can stay, Ice-chan?" asked one of the girls sadly, who had white hair and eyes that were a shade between blue and green. "It's not fair. First Arena-chan and now you," said another of the girls with blonde hair and violet eyes. "Come on girls. It's not that big of a deal, we'll see each other during the holidays," Issei said, trying to cheer them up. "But even so, it won't be the same," said the last of the three girls, also with blonde hair and light blue eyes. "Look, girls, I have these for you. They might not be much, but every time you see them, you'll remember that I'll always be there for you," said a cheerful Issei, pulling out three small items for his three friends. The white-haired girl received a bracelet with an M on it, the blonde with violet eyes received a hair ribbon, and the blonde with blue eyes received a butterfly-shaped hair clip. "Thank you, Ice-chan," the three girls said in unison, happy and at the same time saddened that their best friend had spent what little savings he had on them. "Come on, Ice. We have to leave now," Mr. Hyoudou shouted to get his son to come. After saying goodbye with a small hug to each of them, Ice got into his father's car, leaving his three friends behind, eager to see him again. At the airport, the Hyoudou family headed towards the plane designated to fly to their new home. When they arrived at the airport of the Scandinavian capital, little Issei, like any 7-year-old boy, was wide-eyed at the sight before him. Everything was covered in snow, and the people had quite different features from Japanese people, and even spoke a different language. "Well, Ice, do you like our new house?" Mrs. Hyoudou asked her son. "Yes. But I don't know anyone. What if I don't make friends here?" Issei said, a little sadly, remembering his friends from Japan. "Relax, sweetheart. It's normal to be scared when you arrive somewhere you don't know anyone, especially being abroad and speaking another language. But you'll see, little by little you'll make many friends." Mrs. Hyoudou tried to reassure her son while stroking his head. This had the desired effect, and Issei relaxed and slowly fell asleep. A few minutes later, the taxi arrived at what would be the Hyoudou family's new home. It was on the outskirts of town, next to a beautiful forest that looked completely white. To say that Issei was eager to start playing in the snow was an understatement, but he had to resign himself when his mother told him that he couldn't go out to play today, since it was late and they had to start organizing things. When night fell and they had eaten a light dinner since the family hadn't had much time to shop, Issei's mother accompanied him to his room, which still needed things like clothes put away in their respective places. "Sweet dreams, Ice," his mother said affectionately as she kissed her son on the forehead, who was slowly falling into the arms of Morpheus. A few hours later, Issei was still sleeping in his room until he heard a deafening scream from his mother and woke up. He ran to the main hall, and there he saw his mother in a pool of her blood, dying. A man who looked like his father, but had a reptilian form, was facing several individuals wearing dark suits and with wings as black as the darkest night. "I won't let you touch my son Kakebiel," shouted the reptilian man at a man who stood out from the rest because he had 10 pairs of black wings. "Kakakaka, look at you. Maybe you're one of the strongest in your class, but it's 15 versus 1. Do you still think you can defend your little one?" mocked the man named Kakebiel. "Dad, Mom?" asked a very scared Issei, recognizing his father's voice, causing both men to notice the boy's presence. "Issei. Yuaig," Mr. Hyoudou tried to say until he was pierced by a light spear from Kakebiel, who took advantage of the situation to knock Issei's father out of the fight. "Well, look who's appeared, Kakaka." Kakebiel laughed at the little boy's terrified face. Ice, run away," were the words of his mother, crying because she knew she would not see her little one grow up. "I'll live for us, son," his father said, tears welling in his eyes until they faded after another attack from Kakebiel. "Mom. Dad," the little boy shouted as he saw them disappear. "TSK, they were tough," said Kakebiel. Very well, little one, you're next. Kakabiel said, laughing as he said this and throwing a spear of light at Issei, who somehow managed to dodge it and ran towards the back entrance and into the forest. TSK, follow him. Don't let him escape. Kakabiel ordered his henchman, who obeyed. Issei kept running and running, but little by little he was running out of energy. He advanced a few meters, but then he saw that he was cornered against a cliff. I've got you. Now die. He heard Kakabiel shout as he launched a spear of light through the little boy's body, who spat blood and, due to inertia, fell off the cliff. Kakabiel-sama, did we make sure he's dead? One of his henchmen asked. There's no need, I don't think he would have held up. Kakabiel said, retreating along with his henchmen from the scene. Issei continued falling downhill, crashing against the cliff's rocks until he landed in the cold snow, feeling his eyes close and unconsciousness creeping in. Suddenly, Issei opened his eyes again, disoriented and unsure of his surroundings, whether hours, days, or anything else had passed. He only remembered how his parents had died at the hands of that man, and how he found himself alone in an unfamiliar country with no help. A child his age wouldn't survive, so he resolved to get up and seek help, even if it meant enduring the excruciating pain of the light spear in his stomach and a broken leg. Meanwhile, in a small house, a 7-year-old platinum-haired girl went out to play in the snow with her grandmother's permission. "Grandma, I'm going to play outside," said the little girl. "Be careful," warned the young grandmother. While the little girl continued playing in the snow, she heard several noises, so she prepared some magic in her hands in case it was a wild animal, only to end up almost screaming because she was witnessing a boy with brown hair and light brown eyes, with a spear in his stomach, a broken leg, and a lot of dried blood on his clothes. "Help. Me," was what the girl heard before the boy fell unconscious again from exhaustion and blood loss. "Ah!" screamed the girl, alarming her grandmother, who immediately came out ready to fight, but was shocked by the scene of her granddaughter crying and a bloody child with a spear of light. But how could a child get in here and survive such wounds and that spear of light? Fallen angels, were the grandmother's thoughts until she decided to pick up the child and take him home to her still crying granddaughter. Chapter 2. It was night and we can see a certain woman in one of the rooms of her cabin preparing ointments to heal the wounds of little Issei and make them heal faster, being helped by her now calmer little granddaughter. "Grandma, will she get better soon?" asked the little blonde girl. "It will take time for her wounds to heal and for her to wake up, but Rose will recover," replied the girl's grandmother. Once the woman had finished treating the wound, she washed her hands, covered in the little boy's blood, in the small bowl of water on the bedside table, and turned to her granddaughter. "Well, Rose, why don't you go to sleep? You don't want to be late for school tomorrow, do you? I'll be watching the boy, okay?" the woman asked her granddaughter with a smile. "Okay. Good night, Grandma," replied the little girl, who looked one last time before leaving. When the little girl left, there was a brief silence in the room until the platinum-haired woman let out a big sigh. "I don't know what happened to you before, little one, but I'm afraid that as soon as you wake up I'll have to erase your memory and leave you back in the human world," the woman said to no one in particular as she began to clean the dried blood that remained on the edges of the boy's wounds, until the next thing she saw was darkness. "But how? What is this?" the woman asked in that black space. "You are in the consciousness of the boy you saved, Valkyrie." A deep raspy voice spoke to the woman, who was startled by the sound and assumed an attack stance. When she tried to summon magic circles, she saw that nothing was happening, so she decided to calm down and answer the voice. "What's this about me being in the child's consciousness? Who are you? And why can't I summon my magic?" the woman asked, looking around. "The reason you can't summon magic is because I won't allow it, because I don't intend to attack you. You're in consciousness because I'd like to talk to you," the voice said to the woman, who began to hear the sound of heavy footsteps and from the shadows, saw something that terrified her and, for the first time in a long time, made her tremble with fear. Before the woman stood a great dragon with red scales and deep green eyes slanted vertically like those of a reptile. "And no, it can't be, you're." The words wouldn't come out of the woman's mouth. "I am Drag, the Red Dragon Emperor also. The Sekiryuutei," spoke the one now known as Drag. "But why you were sealed away by all three factions together? It can't be. If you're here, I want this child too." The woman was about to finish, but was interrupted by the dragon. "Yes. Currently that little boy you saved is my wielder, the wielder of the Longinus boosted gear, the current Sekiryuutei, but now I would like to tell you the story of the little boy," stated the enormous red dragon. After about 15 minutes of listening to the boy's tragic story, the woman understood how the child had ended up in such a pitiful state. However, she was puzzled because Azazel, leader of the fallen angels, was a fanatic of sacred gears, so it was strange that he would order the killing of a wielder, especially one of a Longinus. She felt she had to report this to Auden. I understand, you woke up because of the shock the child experienced upon seeing his parents die. It's truly a sad story, but why have you told me all this? The woman asked. Truly, I have a feeling this boy will do great things, so I'd like to be by his side. Besides, he's the son of an acquaintance. The dragon replied to the question. An acquaintance? Yes, this child is the son of Ryashi Hyoudou, a fellow dragon, and his wife Sayaka Hyoudou, a human who accepted Ryashi just as he was. The dragon commented. Wow. This kid never ceases to amaze me. Well, I'll inform Odin about the little one's situation. Thank you very much, Valkyrie. Gondel, call me Gondel, said the silver-haired Valkyrie. Gondel. That sounds familiar. If I remember correctly, you are one of the strongest Valkyries in Asgard. Correction, it was, now I'm retired, but I still help train future Valkyries or advise old Odin, said the platinum-haired woman. I see. Well, now I'll sever the connection with you. Thank you again for saving the boy, said the dragon, severing the link and returning Gondel to the room where little Issei was still resting. Ah, sigh, it seems to me that from now on very complicated days are coming, said the adult Valkyrie with a sideways smile looking at the little one. The Valkyrie known as Gondel invoked a magic circle of communication in order to inform Odin of what had happened. Odin. It's me, Gondel. I called to inform you that someone unexpected has arrived in Asgard. Don't worry, he's just a child, but this child is the wielder of the boosted gear. Yes, the current Sekiryuutei. He'll awaken in about 2 days at most. Okay, understood. Until then. The woman finished her conversation with Odin and decided to leave the room to let the boy rest more peacefully. The 2 days passed very quickly, and in the little boy's room were Gondel, who was changing the boy's bandages, and Rossweisse, who was helping her by passing her the utensils that her grandmother needed. At that very moment, a large golden magic circle appeared, illuminating the room, through which the ruling god of Asgard, Odin, made his appearance. His appearance is from the Thor movie, the DxD movie, whichever you prefer. Gondel, hasn't the boy woken up yet? Odin asked. I should do it in a few minutes. The Valkyrie replied without looking at the god, as she had sensed his presence. Lord Odin. The one who hadn't noticed was little Rossweisse, who started to get nervous upon seeing the supreme ruler of Asgard in her grandmother's house. The little girl already knew that her grandmother knew Odin firsthand, but it was one thing to hear about him and another to have him less than 2 meters away. Upon hearing the little girl's voice, Odin turned to see Gondel's granddaughter. Oh, if it isn't little Rossweisse, you've grown so much since last time, Odin said with a smile to calm the little platinum-haired girl's nerves. Rose, my dear, could you step outside for a moment so I can speak with Odin? Gondel asked kindly to her granddaughter, who agreed without hesitation. So this little one here is the Sekiryuutei, Odin said, focusing more on the small boy with brown hair and light brown eyes. Yes. According to what the Red Dragon Emperor told me, he's from Japan. His father was a dragon and his mother human. They were attacked by fallen angels. The platinum-haired woman explained. I see. Now I understand the small draconic aura the boy gives off, although I can't imagine Azazel wanting to kill a sacred gear wielder, especially a Longinus, said old Odin in a thoughtful pose while scratching his beard. Ugh. Where am I? A soft tired voice said, pulling Odin and Gondel from their thoughts. They turned their gaze towards the bed and found that little Issei had already woken up. It's good to see you awake, little one, Odin said. Who are you? Where am I? And my parents? Issei asked Odin and Gondel very quickly. Both Odin and Gondel were able to deduce that due to the serious condition in which he arrived in Asgard and being unconscious, it affected him, especially Gondel, who heard the story that Drake told him about how the boy survived to fall off a cliff. Calm down, little one, they won't hurt you, said a voice coming from the left arm where a red gauntlet was materializing with some spikes sticking out of it and a green gem in the center. Who are you? And why are you on my arm? Issei asked again. I am Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor, and from now on we will be partners. The silver-haired woman next to you is called Gondel, and the old man is Odin, said Drake, taking charge of the introductions. What you say is true, little one, and regarding your parents, Gondel said with a sad expression, knowing that what he was about to tell the child could affect him. Several minutes passed during which Gondel repeated almost the same words that Drake had used to tell the whole story. And no, it can't be. Then. Mom and dad are. Is tried to speak as tears slowly streamed down his face. Faced with this situation, all Gondel could do was try to comfort the child. Drake didn't know what to do, as he had never been in a situation like this before. Finally, Odin stood with a thoughtful expression, an internal debate raging within him. He knew that if he did what he was thinking, it could create a great dilemma for the other factions. He opened his eyes and saw the little brown-haired boy being comforted by the silver-haired woman. With that image, he had already made his decision. Little one. What was your name? Odin asked kindly. Hyoudou Issei. The brunette replied, sounding a little doubtful. Very well. Issei, would you like to become strong to protect people and prevent events like that from happening to you again? If so, would you like to be my son? The Norse god asked the little boy. Gondal's reaction was one of disbelief at the proposal he had just made to the little brunette. Issei didn't know how to answer. He was petrified by the question the old man known as Odin had asked him. He remembered that the silver-haired woman known as Gondal knew his story because Dreg had told it to her, and also that the place he was in was the kingdom of Asgard, great pioneers of magic, and that those who attacked his parents were the fallen angels. After remembering his father's last words, he made a decision. Why yes. Please help me be strong, said the brunette, sitting on the bed and lowering his head before Odin. Alright Issei, in a month when your wounds have completely healed, you can call me Otu-san if that's more comfortable for you. Odin said, finishing with a smile. Hyoudou-san. Issei said nervously to Odin, who had a smile on his face. Well, I must go, Gondal. I'll come back to see the boy in a month, and right now I'll arrange some things so he can go to the academy. Odin announced. But, are you sure about what you're doing, Odin? The Valkyrie asked. More than ever. Odin finished, disappearing through a magic circle. Seconds after he was gone, the woman sighed and looked at the small chestnut-haired boy. Well, Issei-kun, I'll treat your wounds now. This might sting a little. The woman warned as the brunette swallowed hard. Grandma. Can I come in? Shouted little Rossweisse from outside the room. Come in Rose, replied the older platinum blonde. The moment the door opened, Issei saw a small, silver-haired girl with blue eyes, about his age. For a moment their eyes met until the girl smiled. It's good that you're awake, said the girl. Thank you, replied Issei. My name is Rossweisse, and yours? Hyoudou Issei, but you can call me Ice. Rose, could you help Issei-kun bear the pain while I treat him? The platinum-haired woman asked the little girl, who nodded. At that moment, Rossweisse picked up a chair and carried it to the side of the bed. To reassure the boy, she decided to take his hand. The second she touched her small hand with his, she felt a warmth surrounding her, inspiring a sense of protection that she enjoyed. Yufufu, it seems what they say about dragons is true. The Valkyrie thought, amused. After 10 minutes Rossweisse was still unconsciously holding Issei's hand. Rose. I just finished treating Issei-kun 10 minutes ago. Gondal said playfully to his granddaughter. Rossweisse's reaction was to blush for having lost track of time and apologize to Issei, who told her it was okay. Well Rose, let's let Issei-kun rest, since he'll be going to the academy with you next week, so I hope you two get along well, okay? In response to Gondal's question, both Issei and Rossweisse nodded their heads. For the rest of the week, Issei rested from his injuries, while Gondal gave him a few lessons on the basics of Asgard, its gods, Yggdrasil, Ragnarok, Valhalla, and the different worlds that Yggdrasil held together, which were Midgard, Helheim, Niflheim, Muspelheim, Svartalfheim, Alfheim, Vanaheim, and Jotunheim, or the Aesir, who were the gods of the Norse pantheon. Issei's first day at the academy arrived. He had arrived at the same time as Rossweisse, but was told to wait outside his classroom to be introduced to everyone. Throughout Asgard, the news that Odin had adopted a child was already known, but very few knew his identity or appearance. Gondal told him that, surely, being Odin's son, he would attend the class where the sons and daughters of other kings, gods, or children with great magical ability were found. Right now, Issei was standing in front of his classroom door waiting for the teacher. Very well, you can come in now, please, said the teacher, opening the door. Oh okay. Issei replied, a little nervously, as he entered the classroom door. He had also been told beforehand that he would be in the same class as some of his relatives, such as Thor's sons, Modi and Magni. Well, how about you introduce yourself to the rest of the class? The teacher said. Hello everyone, my name is Hyoudou Issei. I hope we can all get along. Issei finished his introduction with a small bow. Very well, Issei, find a seat you like, said the teacher as she prepared for today's class. As Issei walked around looking for a seat in his classroom, he saw who his classmates would be. He distinguished between different races like elves, dark elves, dwarves, etc. He also heard whispers like he's the new son of Odin, or he's very cute and a few others, until he spotted Rossweisse in one of the last rows reading, and since she was the only person he knew, he headed towards her. Hi Rossweisse, can I sit here or is it taken? Issei asked, pointing to the chair next to the girl. Huh? Why yes, you can sit down if you want, she said, a little distracted at being caught off guard because she was reading her class book. Thank you very much, Issei said with a small smile. With great effort, Issei managed to keep up with the class thanks to Gondal's lessons, and was able to answer some questions, although most were answered by his classmate Rossweisse. Each time she answered a question, she received stares from her classmates that Issei found distasteful. At break time, many approached Issei to ask if he wanted to join them, but he politely declined, choosing to stay with Rossweisse, who secretly enjoyed having the brown-haired boy with her. The month Auden had set as the timeframe for Issei's injuries passed quickly, and during this time, Issei and Rossweisse's relationship grew. They talked about their hobbies and favorite foods, and they also spent time playing in the snow outside the cabin. In short, during this month, Rossweisse and Issei formed a small friendship. Issei also told Rossweisse about his 4 friends from Japan, and for some reason, the little silver-haired girl didn't like him and was sad that she wasn't Issei's first friend. He noticed this and told her that she was the first friend he had made here in Asgard, which cheered her up a little. The day Auden had arranged to visit Issei arrived, and as expected, Gondel, Auden, and Issei were gathered at the table, discussing how the brunette had fared at the academy. "I've been told you're making progress in magic, especially fire and ice magic," Auden said, happy to see his new son advancing in magic. Well, the truth is that Drake has helped me a lot and gives me very good advice," Issei replied, giving some credit to the dragon who puffed out his chest proudly inside the boosted gear. "I see, I'm glad you get along well with him. You're feeling much better from your injuries, aren't you?" "Yes, father." "Well, the only thing left to do is make you completely my son," said the Norse god. "Is it necessary to do that, Auden?" the Valkyrie asked. "If Gondel, most of the Norse gods ask me to do this, and I also want to do it because I want to give Issei a good future." Auden explained his reasons. "So what do I have to do for that? It won't hurt, right?" Issei said, a little worried. "Of course not, I will only grant you a portion of my power, although there may be some external changes, such as your hair, and above all, your control over your magic will improve significantly, making it much easier," Auden explained to Issei, outlining some of the changes he might experience. "Alright, if that's how I protect the people who are important to me, I'll do it," Issei said resolutely, managing to elicit a smile from both adults. At that moment, both adults and the young red dragon emperor stood up, and Auden began the power transfer process. He closed his eyes, placed the palm of his right hand on the boy's head, and began to channel a golden aura into the boy's body. The boy resisted the pain for a while, due to the immense amount of power Auden was bestowing upon him. After a couple of minutes, the process ended, and the main changes in the boy's body were that he had gained a few centimeters in height, and the tips of his hair had turned platinum blonde. "Well, I must admit your new look suits you," said Gondel, with Auden nodding in agreement, Issei feeling a little embarrassed by the compliment. "Now for the most important thing. Issei, would you like to come live with us at the royal palace? My wife is eager to meet her new son," Auden said, leaving Issei and Gondel speechless, though a touch of sadness could be seen on the latter's face. She wouldn't want her little Rose to see this. "Well, father, I'd like to," Issei began, but the sound of a glass falling caught the attention of everyone in the room. Turning towards the noise, they saw the little platinum-haired girl with tears in her eyes. "Rose," said Gondel. "No, no, no," shouted Ms. Rossweisse as she ran out the door and into the outside world. "Wait, Rossweisse," Issei shouted, running after her and leaving the 2 adults in the house. "Oh. I apologize, Gondel, it seems this happened because of me," Auden said to the Valkyrie. "Auden doesn't need it. It's just that Rose has never been very social with the rest of her classmates and has always hidden away in her books. Even I didn't know what to do. And since little Issei arrived, I don't know what he's done, but he's managed to make my little one have fun and laugh like never before. I suppose that when she thought her first friend was leaving and she'd never see him again, she got scared," the Valkyrie explained sadly to her governor. "I hope he can talk some sense into her, although I'd like to go after them too. I understand. But I don't think there's any need to worry, Issei will bring her back," the Nordic governor replied to the Valkyrie. "Right now we can see Issei in the snowy forest near Gondel's house." The boy was desperately searching for his friend Rossweisse because in a few minutes it would get dark and it would be much more dangerous and difficult to search for her. "Rossweisse. Rossweisse." Issei shouted louder and louder, but it was in vain. He stood there for a few seconds, thinking about where his friend might have gone, until he remembered that she was probably at her favorite place, the one the girl had told him about, that crystal clear lake that was a little way from his house. So he headed there without wasting any time. It took her a few minutes to reach the lake, and once there she spotted a small figure sitting on the edge of the lake, hugging her legs and crying. It was her friend Rossweisse. "What a relief, Rossweisse, I was worried," Issei said as he approached her. "Leave me alone," was all Rossweisse said. "Huh? What's wrong? Why did you leave like that?" "I don't plan on leaving you," Issei replied. "Liar," Rossweisse shouted, glaring at Issei with her blue eyes, now red from crying. "You'll go to Auden's royal palace, meet lots of people, make friends, and forget all about me," the little platinum-haired girl continued, tears welling up again. I don't want to lose my first friend," she cried, finally letting out all her frustration and revealing the reason for her outburst. Silly girl. Issei said as he sat down next to her and hugged her. Of course I'll never stop being your friend and I'll never leave you alone. Issei said, beginning to stroke his friend's back to calm her down. Hey, are you sure? She asked, still a little unsure. Definitely, besides, you didn't let me answer Otu-san. How about we go back so I can give him my answer? The brunette asked, getting a yes from the platinum-haired girl. He offered her his hand to help her up and she accepted the gesture. As her hand brushed against Issei's, she felt that warm sensation she had felt when her grandmother healed her wounds. And so, hand in hand, they continued their walk back home. After several minutes, Issei and Rossweisse entered the house and found Auden and Gondal sitting at the table waiting. They were relieved to see that both children had returned safe and sound. Rose, what a relief, you have no idea how worried I was. Said Gondal as she stood up and went to hug her granddaughter. I am sorry, Grandma. I. She tried to speak until she was interrupted by her grandmother who put a finger to her lips. I understand, darling. But don't do it again, okay? The older blonde asked the younger one, who nodded. When the conversation between the two silver-haired women ended, Issei prepared to give Auden his answer. Well, Issei, what was it you were going to answer earlier? Auden asked. Well, Otu-san, what I was going to tell you earlier was that. Issei paused for a moment to glance at his friend, who was staring at the ground in resignation. Seeing this, Issei made a decision. I'd like to stay and live here if it doesn't bother Gondal-san. Issei said, surprising everyone. In just a few seconds, the two adults present smiled at each other. Alright, I respect your decision. It's fine with me. What do you say, Gondal? Auden asked the Valkyrie. I don't mind Issei-kun staying here to live, and you? Rose. The Valkyrie asked her granddaughter. Huh? Oh, of course I don't mind Issei living here. Rossweisse said, a little embarrassed after coming out of her trance. Well, nothing more to say. But I would like you to at least come by on weekends. Auden said to his adoptive son. Okay, but could Rossweisse come too? The brunette asked his father, surprising everyone once again, especially the little platinum-haired girl. Well, if Gondal gives permission, I won't object. Said Auden, turning his gaze to Gondal. That's fine with me. The woman said. Would you like to go with Issei this weekend, Rose? Well. Why yes. The little girl said, a little embarrassed. Great, I'll come and get you on Friday. Said a smiling Auden, departing through a magic circle. Okay, guys, let's have dinner. Said the older blonde, followed by the two children. A couple of hours after dinner, we see Issei lying on his bed in his small room. He didn't have many things since he'd only been there a month. The few things he owned were several changes of clothes. Just as he was about to fall asleep, he heard his bedroom door open and opened his eyes to see who it was, only to find Rossweisse entering his room. Rossweisse, is something wrong? Issei asked, a little worried. Thank you. The little girl said in a very low voice, but Issei managed to hear it. Thank you. Why? For staying here. Although why do you want me to go with you this weekend? Like I told you before, I'll always be your friend and I didn't plan on leaving you alone. Issei said with a smile, making Rossweisse blush. Issei. Can I sleep with you tonight? The platinum-haired girl asked shyly. Of course. Issei replied, making room for his friend, who settled beside him and for the third time felt that warm, relaxing sensation. Good evening, Rossweisse. Rose. I would like you to call me Rose like my grandmother. Okay. Rose-chan. Said Issei. Chan? Asked a doubtful Rossweisse. Well. In Japan, Chan is used with people who are important to you and whom you care about. Issei replied, making Rossweisse happy to know that she was already important to him. For boys, kun is usually used. Issei explained, sharing some of the typical Japanese customs. I understand. Good night. Ice-kun. The platinum-haired girl said, closing her eyes. Issei was a little surprised as it caught his attention, but he just smiled and went to sleep as well. The week passed quickly, and as Auden had said, on Friday he appeared at Gondal's house to fetch the two children and go to Auden's palace. To say the two were surprised was an understatement. Now, Auden, Issei, and Rossweisse found themselves in Auden's palace, also known as Gladheim, which was almost entirely covered in a shimmering gold. They proceeded until they reached a large gate guarded by two Einarjar, the name given to the male warriors of Asgard in honor of the fallen who journeyed to Valhalla. Shortly after passing through, they made their way to the palace's main hall. All the way there, Issei and Rossweisse couldn't take their eyes off the gold and platinum decorations. Upon arriving at the hall, the first thing they saw was a woman waiting for them, sipping tea. This woman had brown hair, blue eyes, and a figure any woman would envy. Darling, we've arrived. Auden said to the woman, who looked at her husband and then at the boys, and when she saw the little brunette, she smiled. Hi guys, my name is Frigg and I'm Auden's wife. The woman introduced herself, then looked at the brunette. What makes me your mother or Aka-san, Issei? The woman laughed. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Frigo Aka-san. Issei and Rossweisse said in unison. At that moment the woman noticed the little girl accompanying her new son, and a mischievous smile spread across her face at the idea that had just occurred to her. Well. I didn't know my Issei already had a cute girlfriend Yufufu. Frigg said, getting the reaction she expected. A big blush from the two little ones. We're not be boyfriends. Issei managed to say, while Rossweisse remained in the same state. Oh, that's a shame because you make a very good couple. Frigg continued, trying to embarrass them and making the children blush even more. Come on Frigg, stop bothering the boys, they're going to be spending every weekend here. Auden informed his wife. That's fine. I don't need to tell you that you're in your own home. Frigg said with a smile. Throughout the weekend, Issei met the rest of his family, his brothers Thor, Balder, and Loki, although the latter wasn't very interested in bonding with him. He also spent more time with Modi and Magni, who apologized to Rossweisse at Issei's request for their behavior towards her before the brunette arrived. She accepted their apology, as since Issei's arrival, she had become more social with people, allowing them to get to know her much better before criticizing her. Issei's new family also adopted some Japanese customs to make him feel more comfortable. Thor and Balder called him Ataudo, and Modi and Magni decided to call him Ani-san, since calling someone your own age Oji-san was a bit awkward. They also met Thor's youngest daughter, Thrud, a shy little 5-year-old girl with blonde hair like her father, but who quickly warmed up to Issei and Rossweisse, calling them Ani-chan and Wani-chan. The years passed quickly for Issei and Rossweisse. During that time, they made many more friends. At the academy, when they were 10 years old, Issei helped 2 elf girls during an incident and also met a blonde boy with blue eyes who arrived in Asgard in almost the same condition as the brunette. He was badly injured and had to be taken to the hospital. At first, he didn't want to talk to anyone, so Auden suggested that Issei could talk to him since he would feel more comfortable if someone his own age spoke to him. When this blonde boy saw someone enter his room, he was greeted by a familiar scent and realized that he smelled like him. Like a dragon. After that small detail, the two boys had a conversation where the blonde boy said his name was Sting, his father was a dragon named Loja, and his magic was light dragon slayer magic. From that moment on, the two boys became great friends. Auden even offered him a small house in Asgard for the blonde boy's comfort, which the blonde boy greatly appreciated. It was also decided that he would attend the academy with Issei and Rossweisse. At this very moment, we see a 15-year-old Issei sleeping in his bed. The boy had changed over the years, and now some of his muscles were well defined, but he maintained his slender build. He had also improved his thunder magic with Thor's help, although when they trained together, half the training grounds were destroyed by the clashes of Mjolnir and the boosted gear. Beside him was a beautiful platinum-haired girl of the same age, Rossweisse, who was wearing pajamas that accentuated her figure. She didn't know why she slept next to Issei from the beginning, since when she tried to sleep in her own bed, she couldn't fall asleep because she missed the warmth Issei gave off. She always asked him if she could sleep with him until it became a habit for her. She was stretching when she heard the door creak open. How did the couple sleep? Gondal said from the doorway. Issei stretched fully upon hearing Gondal's voice, or Bach-an as he sometimes called her at her insistence. She used the excuse that she would most likely end up being his real grandmother, so he would get used to it, thus dropping a big hint that did not go unnoticed by Issei, who became nervous at such things. I mean, Bach-an. I'm sorry to bother you, you seemed very comfortable, but today is your graduation as Einarjar and Valkyrie, so you can't be late. Gondal said, then looked at her granddaughter amusedly. Although it seems someone doesn't care about being late. She laughed, making Issei turn his gaze to where a young platinum-haired girl was curled up with a small smile, resting her head on the boy's chest. Rose-chan, wake up. Issei said, embarrassed as he felt certain parts of the girl pressed tightly against him. Good morning Ice. Rossweisse said, rubbing her eyes to fully wake up, and sat up in bed. Good morning Rose. Said a sing-song voice that reached the girl's ears, who turned her head to see her grandmother holding back her laughter. Grandma. Rossweisse shouted, red-faced and embarrassed. What are you doing here? She asked, flustered. I only came to wake you up. I wouldn't want you to be late for your academy graduation, so get ready, lovebirds. She said, further embarrassing the two young men. By the way, Issei, your parents want to talk to you first, so you should go to the palace. Okay. Replied the brunette, starting to get dressed. When he finished, he said goodbye to the two women, saying he would see them at graduation. Rose. I also need to talk to you. Gondal said very seriously to Rossweisse, who was a little scared to see her grandmother like this, since she rarely saw her so serious. Meanwhile, at Auden's palace, a conversation was also taking place between Auden, Frigg, and Issei. Well son, before graduation we wanted to give you a present. Auden said as he took a small toy-looking boat out of his pocket. Father. What is that? Issei asked, curiously eyeing the small boat that was now flying in circles above his head. This son is a skadbladner and it's our gift for your graduation from the academy. It can be your familiar if you wish. Auden explained. I see. Thank you very much, father, mother, I think I'll call him Ryudomaru. Issei said, now putting the skadbladner away. There's another matter we want to discuss with you, son. Frigg said, more serious than usual. Which Aka-san? Well. Drake has already told you everything about who your real parents were, right? Auden asked. Why? Replied Issei, who during these years also improved his relationship with Drake, who was a great help when practicing magic, and with his ability to multiply, he could launch more powerful attacks without resorting to his magical reserves. Has he told you everything? What do you mean, Otu-san? The brunette asked, and just then the red gauntlet of the boosted gear made its appearance on the boy's left arm. I really couldn't talk to him about it. I didn't know how to say it. Said Drake from the gauntlet, making both Auden and Frigg sigh. I see. This actually complicates things a bit. Auden said thoughtfully. Complicate what? Can someone tell me what it is that Drake didn't tell me? The brunette asked, a little more tense from so many unknowns. You see, darling, being the son of two gods, you could consider yourself a demigod, but you're also a dragon, and you possess the booted gear. Frigg said. And is there any problem with that? So, Issei. Are you interested in any girls? Frigg blurted out, causing Issei to spit out the tea he was drinking because of the sudden question. Aka-san, what's with that question? Issei asked, embarrassed. You answer it, Issei. Frigg insisted. Issei knew his mother wouldn't back down from her answer, and as for the question, the only thing that came to mind was a platinum-haired girl with blue eyes. Every day he spent with her was better than the last, but he never felt confident enough to tell her. Well, there could be a girl. Issei said shyly, eliciting a small smile from Frigg, who already knew who the girl was who had captured her son's heart. At the same time as this conversation was taking place, in another house two platinum-haired women were having their own chat. Look, Rose, I'll be direct. You like Issei, right? Gondal said without hesitation, surprising Rossweisse. What? How? Was all the girl could manage to say. Come on, Rose, I'm your grandmother. It's almost impossible to hide anything from me. Ever since Issei decided to stay with us, you're always with him. I know you often stayed overnight with him, to the point that you sleep with him every day now. Gondal said, causing her granddaughter to become even more embarrassed and unable to deny the obvious. Why yes. I think I like Ice. At first, I considered him my best friend, but whenever I saw him talking to other girls, I got nervous and jealous. Whenever he gave me one of his smiles, it felt like my heart was going to stop. I think I fell in love with Ice because of his kindness and big heart. And he always kept his promises. Rossweisse said to her grandmother, whispering the last part. I see. You'd even be willing to share it. Gondal asked. Share it? Rossweisse asked. As you well know, Rose, Issei-kun has dragon blood, not to mention he's the Sekiryuutei, and in the past, previous Sekiryuutei have always been surrounded by women, so you wouldn't be the only girl in his heart. Even so, do you still love him? After hearing her grandmother's last words, Rossweisse could only smile sadly. I already knew that, Grandma. Rossweisse said, making Gondal raise an eyebrow. I tried to find information about the previous Sekiryuutei in case I could help Ice, and I came across that characteristic. I'd be lying if I said my heart ached at that moment for not being the only one in his heart. I thought about it for quite some time, and I don't care. Even if he has 100 or more girls, I'll still be with him. I'd rather love him and share him than reject him and be alone for life. Rossweisse said with great determination, looking Gondal in the eye, who was slowly breaking into a smile. I'm glad to hear that, because the only one I have permission to be with you is Issei. Gondal said, causing his granddaughter to sweat drop in an I'm style. Back at the palace, Auden, Frigg and Issei also had this conversation, and Issei's reaction was. A what? Issei shouted to the four winds. Yes, Issei, that's what we've said. We know the drag wielders in the past always attracted women, and you won't be an exception, darling. Frigg said to her son, who was looking downcast. I'm sorry, partner. Because of me you might lose the girl. If only I had told you when I could. Drake apologized to Issei mentally, without Auden and Frigg hearing them. Don't blame yourself, Drake. I can't be angry with you after everything you've done for me. Issei said to reassure the dragon. Thank you very much, partner. But what will you do about her? Will you continue with your plan? I don't know. Was all Issei said. He was pulled from the small talk by his mother's voice. Issei. Are you alright? Frigg asked, even though she knew beforehand that he was probably talking to Drake. Yes, I was just thinking, Aka-san. Are you sure, Issei? Auden asked. Well, the truth is. To be honest, I had already decided to ask this girl out, but now with this whole harem thing. I don't feel so sure anymore, and if she rejects me and I see her happy with another man, I don't know what would become of me. Issei said, on the verge of tears. Issei, darling, don't be like that. Frigg said, tenderly hugging her son. Besides, you must stick to your plan. You'll never know if Rose accepts or not unless you ask her. Frigg encouraged Issei. You're right, Akasan, I'll continue with. Wait. How do you know Rose is the girl I like? Issei shouted, agitated, making Frigg stifle her laughter. Issei, a mother's intuition is infallible. Besides, you've been practically boyfriend and girlfriend since you were 7 years old. Almost boyfriend and girlfriend. Did you just invent a new concept? She asked, with an anime sweat drop on her forehead. Are you going to contradict your mother, young man? Frigg asked with a sweet smile, but with a slightly terrifying aura that managed to intimidate even Auden. And no. Issei quickly replied to save his skin, while he looked towards his father to ask for help, but he had already left. Damn traitor. The brunette thought. That's what I thought. Now young man, I want you to go to your graduation and confess to Rose once and for all. The goddess said in a commanding tone. Why yes ma'am. Issei replied, striking a military pose and hurrying off to his academy graduation. No sooner had Issei left than the figure of Gondal appeared through a magic circle. Is everything going according to plan? Frigg asked. With Rose, yes, but how was it with Issei? Gondal asked now. Excellent. So we'd better have it ready for when they return from graduation, said Frigg, withdrawing with Gondal to discuss an extremely important matter. The academy graduation wasn't really a big deal, as the true graduation would be for those who continued for 2 more years to become Valkyries or Einarjars. At this moment, Issei, dressed in a tuxedo, was alone, pondering the best time to speak with Rossweisse. He was cursing his friend Sting, who had asked to graduate a few days early so he could go on a trip with Balder, the god of light, to improve his techniques. Similarly, his 2 elf friends had to leave a few days early to begin preparing for their duties, as they were both heirs to their tribes. Partner. If you don't hurry, you'll miss your chance to confess to her. The dragon spoke mentally to Issei. Drake, shut up. Putting pressure on you doesn't help, it's just that I can't find the right moment. It seems they've already found it for you. Good luck, partner. The dragon said goodbye. Huh? What's wrong, Drake? Issei. Are you alright? Asked a familiar voice to the brunette, who now understood Drake's words. Rose-chan, I was just talking to Draw. Issei said, but when he turned around, he was speechless at how Rossweisse looked in a purple one-piece dress that accentuated her figure. Issei. Hearing his friend's voice, the brunette snapped out of his little trance. Sorry Rose, it's just that you look stunning today. Issei said with a smile. Thank you very much. Rossweisse replied with a faint blush, happy that her secret crush had praised her. For a few seconds an awkward silence fell between the 2 young men. I have to tell you something. They both said in unison. Oh, sorry Ice, you go first. Rossweisse said, giving Issei his turn. Rose-chan, I don't know how to tell you this or how to do it properly, so I think it's best to be direct. Issei said, leaving the girl a little confused about what he wanted to tell her. Rose. Would you like to go out with me? Issei asked suddenly, looking into Rossweisse's blue eyes, who froze and murmured unintelligible things. Rose. Are you okay? Issei asked, worried, since he wasn't getting any response from his friend. Before you answer, I want you to know that. Unfortunately. You won't be the only one. So I understand that. Ice was interrupted by Rossweisse, who had come out of her trance and silenced the brunette with one of her fingers. I know, Issei. My grandmother told me, and it really saddens me. I see. I understand why you don't accept hand. But he was interrupted again by the platinum-haired girl. You didn't let me finish, Ice. The platinum-haired girl continued. It's true that it saddens and hurts me. But it would hurt me much more to see you happy with another girl. I prefer to stay with you and share you than to walk away and see you with someone else. Rossweisse confessed to Issei. So that means that. Yes, I want to go out with you. Rossweisse announced with a beautiful smile, looking into Issei's eyes. Little by little they both brought their faces closer until their lips made contact in a pure kiss that gradually gave way to a passionate one. After 2 minutes of kissing, they had to separate to catch their breath. I'll do everything in my power to make you the happiest woman. Issei said. I know. Rossweisse replied. By the way. What was it you wanted to tell me, Rose-chan? The brunette asked, making the girl remember that she had the same intention of confessing her feelings to him. It's nothing important, Ice. How about we go dancing? Rossweisse said, laughing nervously as she pulled the boy towards the dance floor. The graduation party didn't last much longer. After about 20 minutes of dancing, the teachers said goodbye to their old students and gave words of encouragement to those who would be future Einherjar and Valkyries, as was the case with Issei and Rossweisse. Just after the party ended, the two young people headed to Gondal's house. They decided to walk instead of using a magic circle because they wanted to enjoy their new time as a couple. After several minutes of walking they arrived at the door of the house and it was Issei who proceeded to open it to see that everything was dark. "Why is everything dark? Be careful not to trip, Ice," warned the platinum blonde. Just as Issei found the switch, the room lit up, revealing two people. "Hello, guys," Frigg and Gondal said in unison. "Aka-san. Grandma," exclaimed Issei and Rossweisse respectively. "What are you doing here?" Issei asked. "You see, Issei-kun, we're here because Gondal and I had a little matter to settle," Frigg explained. "I understand, and have you already solved it?" "Yes, you can look through it if you want, since it concerns you both," Gondal said, handing the sheet to the couple, leaving Issei and Rossweisse puzzled. Little by little, both boys read what was written on the paper, their faces showing disbelief and accompanied by deep blushes. What is this?" Issei asked nervously, while Rossweisse lowered her head to hide her blush, although a little steam could be seen coming from her ears. "Well, it says so right there at the beginning, son, it's a commitment agreement." I already saw that, Aka-san, but what's this all about?" "Wait," Issei said when he began to deduce what this was all about. "You already had our talk planned," Issei shouted, pointing an accusing finger at his mother. "Yufufu, you've caught me," confessed the brunette woman. "So? You planned our whole talk too, Grandma?" Rossweisse asked, now calmer. "Well, yes, we both knew you two were smitten with each other, we just decided it would be good to give you a little push," the older platinum-haired woman replied calmly. "Honestly, this is not a little push at all," Issei replied. Are you going to contradict us again, Issei?" Frigg asked, expelling the same aura as in the previous conversation, causing Issei to quickly shake his head and making his mother stop expelling said aura. "Seriously though. Don't you think this is rushing things?" The brunette spoke again. "Guys. You've known each other since you were 7 years old and since then you've always been together, you were rarely seen apart. Besides, Issei, I know you'll make Rose happy," said Gondal with a smile. "Honestly, I wouldn't mind getting engaged to you, Ice," the platinum-haired girl said shyly. "Rose-chan. Are you sure?" Issei asked. "So? You wanted to know what I was going to say to you at the party, right?" Rossweisse asked, getting a nod from Issei. "Well, I was going to ask you out too. You wanted to be more than just my friend. And now that I'm with the boy I love and I've been given a chance to get closer to him, I don't want to turn it down." The young platinum-haired woman finished, moving the boy and the two women present. "Rose-chan. It's okay, as I said before I'll try to make you happy for the rest of my life. Aka-san, we'll sign the paper," the brunette said decisively as he intertwined his hand with Rossweisse's, making her blush since both of their maternal figures were in front of them. "What a joy. Here you are, Issei," the goddess said happily as she took out a pen for the two teenagers to sign the paper that would bind them together almost for life. "Everything has gone smoothly," said the older platinum blonde. "Yes. But now I warn you, young ones," Frigg announced with a serious face, intimidating Issei and Rossweisse. "As fiancés, you can continue sleeping together, but no indecent things until you are of age. As much as I wish to be a grandmother and Gondal a great-grandmother so we could spoil our grandchildren, you must be responsible." The goddess spoke, making Issei blush, while Rossweisse wasn't any better, because in her mind she imagined Issei and her in bed doing anything but holy. "Well, with that said, I must go. See you later, Issei. Oh, and now, Rose, you can call me Aka-san," Frigg said as she left in a magic circle. "Come on, guys, it's time to rest. In a few months, you'll be training hard to become future warriors of Asgard," Gondal told the pair, who accepted the Valkyrie suggestion. "And resist the temptation, you too, haha." Gondal finished, teasing the boys a little more. For the next 2 years, Issei and Rossweisse's relationship continued to improve. At the Einherjar and Valkyrie Academy, they met many people. Right now, Issei was training in the training grounds with a blonde girl with blue eyes who looked a couple of years younger than him. The Red Dragon Emperor was now an Einherjar and his armor was very similar to his brother Thor's, but with a red pattern and the metal had a dragon scale appearance. His cape was red with a dragon on it. Originally, the armor was blue, but Drake's pride wouldn't allow its wearer to wear that color as he was the Great Red Dragon Emperor. And it's basically like the armor Thor wears in the movies, but with the features I described. The girl he was sparring with was blonde with blue eyes. This girl was Thor's youngest daughter, Thrud, who wore the battle armor of every Valkyrie upon entering the academy in her first year. It was mostly blue with green accents, Valkyrie armor will be like Rossweisse's, but with the colors I described. The reason she was training with Issei was that she wanted to test his skill against the one known as the best Einerjar in the academy. Her main weapon was a kind of spear that could transform into a rifle by infusing it with magic, allowing her to fire bullets of different elements. They trained for about 20 more minutes until Thrud was exhausted. "Great job, Thrud-chan, you've improved a lot in controlling your magic," Issei said. "Thank you so much, Ani-chan," Thrud said shyly after being praised by Issei. After training, Issei decided to accompany Thrud to the palace since his father had summoned him there to talk to him and give him something. "Father, I've arrived," Issei announced to the Norse god as he entered accompanied by Thrud, who greeted her grandfather and went to rest. "It's good that you're here, Issei. Come with me to Olaf's lab. That's where I want to show you what I told you about," Odin said. "Wait, could Rose-chan come too?" "Don't worry, he's probably already with Gondal there," Odin finished as he transported them both to the laboratory. Once there, they reached the entrance where they indeed saw both Gondal and Rossweisse. Upon seeing Issei, Rossweisse quickly went to greet him with a kiss. They didn't wait long before the Asgardian researcher named Olaf appeared. Issei already knew him as he had come here previously so they could analyze his boosted gear. Olaf had pale blonde hair, green eyes, semi-rimless glasses, and wore the typical lab coat of a scientist. "It's a pleasure to have you all here today," Olaf said. "Well, Otu-san, what is it you want to talk about? And does it have to do with Olaf or something?" the brunette asked. "You see, Issei, these past few years Asgard has decided to sign a pact with the three great factions. The first to agree were the demons, and as a demonstration that we both support the alliance, we have decided to share some of Asgard's secrets. Well, the demons have taught us how their evil piece system works. And I want you to be the first to have our version of their evil pieces. You know what they are, right, son?" the Norse god asked, leaving both Issei and Rossweisse astonished, since Asgard often remained neutral. "If I'm not mistaken, it's the system that high-class and supreme demons use to reincarnate people and make them their servants. It's inspired by chess and was created by the Mayajuka Beelzebub, also with the purpose of repopulating the demons due to the large number of casualties in the Great War. But why do you want me to be the first to have them?" Issei asked, still surprised as to why his father had chosen him. "Well, Thor is busy with various obligations as the next successor to the throne of Asgard. Baldur is still traveling with your friends Sting and Loki. Well, I don't think he would have even heard me. He was one of the few who refused to do this," the Norse god said, sounding a little dejected. "Alright, Otu-san, I accept the honor of being the first Asgardian to have your pieces. I must do something special, Olaf," Issei said, encouraging Odin and now focusing his attention on the scientist. "Alright, young Issei, you must concentrate your power in one of your hands and give it the shape and size of a ball," Olaf explained to the brunette. He proceeded to follow the blonde man's instructions until he shaped a sphere the size of a basketball that had bluish colors from his Asgardian power and red colors from his dragon heritage. "Wow, I must admit she radiates a great deal of power," Gondal said to no one in particular, while Rossweisse nodded to her grandmother. "Okay. And now," said Issei. "Give it to me carefully, and from here I'll take care of following Mayajuka's instructions." According to him, the process takes about 4 hours, but since this is my first time doing this, it will take me quite a while. "So, if you want, you can continue with your chores, and I'll let you know when everything is ready," Olaf said, carefully picking up Issei's power ball and entering his laboratory to begin creating the pieces. After this, each went their separate ways. Odin had to attend some meetings with the other gods, while Gondal had been assigned the mission of training a special team, leaving Issei and Rossweisse alone. "Issei, would you like to go for a walk while Olaf is gone? I'm meeting up with the girls," Rossweisse said with a smile to the brunette. "I'm sorry, Rose-chan, you know I'd love to go, but I just finished training with Thrud-chan and I'm a bit tired," Issei explained to his silver-haired fiancée. "Alright, but you'll have to make it up to me," Rossweisse said. "I understand. Do you think this makes up for it?" Issei asked as he passionately kissed Rossweisse, catching the girl off guard, but she quickly reciprocated. After a couple of minutes, they both had to separate, leaving a strand of saliva connecting them. "Damn air," muttered the platinum-haired woman, cursing the need to breathe. "Is this compensation for you?" the brunette asked, a little mockingly at the girl's reaction. Well, I'll forgive you for today," Rossweisse said, looking away. A few hours after Olaf started working on creating Issei's pieces, he informed Odin that he had finished the job. Odin then notified Issei, who, upon learning that they could now go and collect the pieces, decided to contact his beloved silver-haired girl, in case she wanted to come. A few minutes before Odin warned Issei, Rossweisse and 9 girls were in a cafe. Together with her, they were the strongest Valkyries to graduate from the academy this year. The first one was blonde with blue eyes and wore a long red dress. This girl's name was Brynhilde. The second was a girl with black hair and brown eyes who wore a white t-shirt and denim shorts. Her name was Hilda. The third girl had violet hair, red eyes, and wore a dark blue t-shirt, which left her cleavage almost exposed, and black pants. This girl's name was Sekiryuutei. The fourth was a girl with long orange hair and eyes of the same color, wearing a white tank top and a red skirt. She also had a kind of tattoo on one of her arms. Her name was Sekiryuutei. The fifth one was a red-haired girl with brown eyes, wearing a white blouse and a blue skirt. The peculiarity about her was that, besides her Valkyrie armor, she also wore other types of armor. Right now, she was eating a strawberry cake. She was known as Spafa. The sixth girl was a girl with long pink hair and a braid and pink eyes. She wore a green blouse with long white pants and was known as Alruna. The seventh of them was a girl with long, wavy green hair and amber eyes. She wore a top the same color as her hair and black shorts. Her name was Spandvid. The eighth girl had brownish orange hair and hazel eyes. Her outfit consisted of a yellow blouse and beige shorts. Her name was Regin Leaf. Finally, there was the ninth girl. She was a platinum blonde like Rossweisse, but with yellow eyes and her hair styled in a ponytail. She wore a white shirt with a blue jacket and a light blue skirt. She was known as Herja. They all met Rossweisse and Issei at the beginning of the Einerjar and Valkyrie Academy. Needless to say, the group of beautiful girls attracted the attention of every man who passed by them. "Tell us, Rose, have you done indecent things with Issei?" Brunhild asked while taking a sip of her drink, causing Rose to almost choke on the pastry she was eating, as she hadn't expected that question. "That's none of your business, Brunhild," Rossweisse exclaimed, embarrassed, causing laughter in the group. "Oh come on, don't be shy and tell us a little bit," Brunhilde insisted. "You know we can't do anything until we're of legal age, and I don't intend to answer any more questions like this," Rossweisse replied. "Boo, boring. Maybe I should help Issei de-stress," Brunhild said, teasing her friend. In a few seconds the air around the group of girls cooled down, and they all turned their gaze towards Rossweisse, who had a sweet smile, but radiated a sinister aura. "Brunhilde, if you try to de-stress Issei, even though we're friends, I'll personally make sure you get your own Ragnarok," Rossweisse warned the blonde. "It was just a joke, Rossweisse," the girl tried to explain. "Come on, Rose, calm down," Alrina said, trying to soothe her. After things calmed down, there was a brief silence among the girls. "Rose, could you tell us how you and Issei met?" Hilda asked to break the silence. "Huh? Why do you want me to tell you?" "Well, we've known you both for 2 years, and you were already a couple and even engaged. We're curious how you got there." Spandvid spoke now on behalf of the whole group. I guess I can tell you," she said, a little embarrassed, knowing what her friends' reactions would be. For several minutes, the platinum-haired girl dedicated herself to recounting how she met Issei, from how he arrived in Asgard to how they became boyfriend and girlfriend and then engaged, and as she imagined, her friend's reaction was not long in coming. "Oh, what a lovely story," they all exclaimed, on the verge of tears, further embarrassing Rossweisse, who was regretting having given in and told them the story. "I really wish there were more guys like him," Herja said with a sigh. "Hey, do you think we could create a machine to clone Issei?" Sigrun asked, addressing no one in particular. "Girls, you're talking about cloning my boyfriend right in front of me," Rossweisse said, with an anime-style sweat drop on her forehead. "Relax, we're already on good terms," Sekiryuutei said. "Yes, Rose, but we'd like to have someone like Issei, strong but also affectionate," Regin Leaf declared. "I wish I had a story as beautiful as yours too," Spafa admitted. "I'm sure if I tell them that Issei must have more than one partner in the future, they'll all jump at him without a second thought. For now, I'll keep this to myself. Maybe it's a little selfish, but I want to spend more time as Issei's only girl," the platinum-haired girl thought as she continued listening to some of her friends' ramblings until a small magic circle of communication formed in her ear. "Aha. Yes, of course I want to go. Very well, I'll go there now," Rossweisse said, ending the communication. "Girls, I have to go." Rossweisse said goodbye to her friends, who nodded in agreement and waved their farewells. After Rossweisse said goodbye to the girls, she teleported to the laboratory where Olaf worked, meeting Issei at the entrance. "Hi Rose-chan, how are the girls?" Issei asked, giving Rossweisse a small kiss. "Good as always," Rossweisse replied. Now they both entered Olaf's laboratory where Odin and the scientist were already waiting. "Are the pieces ready yet, Olaf?" Issei asked. "Yes, but something truly unexpected has occurred," Olaf announced, surprising those present. "Well, a demon's nobility consists of the 15 chess pieces, but in the case of young Issei, I've obtained this result." Olaf spoke, showing 2 boxes. "In these 2 boxes are your pieces, young Issei. Instead of 1 set of nobility, it seems you'll have 2. This left Odin, Issei, and Rossweisse speechless. They opened the cases to see what their pieces looked like, and they were a color between platinum and crimson, with a dragon engraved on each one. Just as they were about to ask questions, Olaf spoke again. "And that's not the only strange thing," said the scientist. "These two pieces also turned out to be the same color, but they look like a cross between a bishop and a rook." "What are those pieces, Olaf?" the Norse god asked curiously. "I don't know, my lord Odin, but there are two, so I deduce that each belongs to a noble class, and I estimate they would be at the level of the queen piece. With your permission, I've decided to name them wild cards. Their formation is unknown, but it could be that due to the power that the great Odin granted to young Issei, along with his dragon heritage and the energy of the boosted gear, two sets of pieces were formed, including these two rare pieces. I also think that your future companions will experience a noticeable improvement in their abilities. I must inform Hyoudou of this. He'll surely be interested." The scientist began to muse, re-entering the laboratory and leaving Issei with his sets of pieces. "Well, Issei, you have your pieces now. You must find people who are willing to follow you and help you at all times," Odin said, placing one of his hands on his son's shoulder. "I know, Otu-san," Issei said as he reached for one of his queen pieces. "Rose-chan. Would you like to be my queen?" Issei asked, offering the piece to his platinum-haired girlfriend. "Of course." Rossweisse replied with a loving smile, bringing the piece closer to her chest. "Edo. And now what?" Issei asked, realizing that Olaf hadn't explained the procedure to them. "Don't worry, Hyoudou gave us instructions in case something like this happens." Odin explained to his adoptive son, who, now knowing what to do, was ready to continue. "I, Hyoudou Issei, name you Rossweisse as my queen, and you swear loyalty to me until the end," Issei chanted, achieving the desired result of the piece being inserted into Rossweisse. "Well, Issei, now that we've finished with all this business about the pieces, I must inform you of a mission I've assigned you," Odin said with a serious face. "What's it about, Otu-san?" Issei asked in the same tone. "You must go to the border between Svartalfheim and Alfheim," Odin announced to Issei, who had a feeling that what he would hear there would not please him at all. Chapter 3. Issei was nervous, and you might wonder why. The reason is simple. He was currently heading towards a neutral zone between Alfheim and Svartalfheim, the homes of the elves and dark elves respectively, and also the home of two of his friends, Lifa and Yao. He was eager to see them again. It was a shame that Rossweisse had to return due to a request from her grandmother to help her train the special group assigned to Gondel. It was also said that most elves and dark elves were very proud, so it was rare for them to ask for help, always preferring to solve their own problems. Therefore, the situation must have been very serious for him to have to accompany his father to that area. Once both Issei and Odin arrived at the agreed-upon location, Issei spotted a small group of elves and another of dark elves, whom he assumed were the guards of the current leaders. Upon seeing Odin, the guards went to where their leaders were to inform them of the arrival of the all-powerful Norse god Odin. The first to appear was a man with blue eyes and short blonde hair that reached his nape, dressed in light-colored clothes, mostly blue, held up by a belt at his hip. This man was Hyoudou, the leader of the elves. The second to appear was also a man of the same height as the previous one, but with a darker skin tone, platinum-colored hair, red eyes, and he wore light armor in dark tones that left part of his torso exposed and combined with a small cape that fell from his right side. This man was named Dihin, leader of the dark elves. Hyoudou. Dihin. It's been a while since we last saw each other. Odin greeted the two elven leaders respectfully. Yes. It's been many years since we last saw each other, Hyoudou said in a calm tone. Right. I gather that the boy with you is the famous Sekiryuutei, isn't he? Honestly, I was expecting someone more imposing, Dihin said bluntly, making Issei's eyebrow twitch at the dark elf leader's disdain. That's right, Dihin. But be careful. You should never judge a book by its cover, Odin replied to Dihin's comment. After the brief exchange of greetings between the three leaders, they decided to begin discussing the main topic. The mission. Well, as we informed you when we requested your help, Odin, an elf among our ranks, along with others, decided to rebel. The leader of this movement is named Oberon. He wasn't very happy about elves and dark elves becoming friends, and that's why he decided to kidnap my daughter Lifa and Dihin's daughter, Yao, so that we would hand over power to him. If we don't do it within a week, our daughters will suffer, the elf leader Hyoudou explained in a pained voice. Dihin nodded at his words, their fists clenched in helplessness. After hearing that two of his best friends had been kidnapped, Issei's blood began to boil, but it exploded inside him when he heard Lifa's father's last words, alluding to that pig planning to rape them. Drake had to summon considerable strength to keep Issei's murderous instincts from overflowing in the meeting area. Now Issei understood why his father wanted him to take charge of the mission, since Odin knew that Issei knew both elves very well, so he thought that the boy would like to kick that rebellious elf's ass. If the boy's assumptions were correct, he was more than happy to do the job. Where is this Oberon hiding? Issei asked the three leaders. According to our best scouts, he and his group are in an abandoned fortress walking southwest from here. The problem is, it's quite far away and it will take several days to get there. Hyoudou replied to the boy's question. Thank you, Mr. Hyoudou, the boy said respectfully. With your permission, father, I'll begin the mission. Issei told Auden as he walked away. Wait, young Issei, Dihin and I have reached an agreement and decided that one of us will accompany you. Hyoudou informed the boy. That's right. She's a great sorceress and healer. Dihin added. Seeing that both leaders insisted he bring the person they were talking about, the boy finally accepted the help. Besides, on second thought, a healer would be very helpful. Please, call her here. Hyoudou requested of one of his subordinates, who followed his leader's order. Issei didn't have to wait long to meet his partner on this mission, and she caught his attention, especially her hair. She was a girl who looked perhaps a couple of years older than him. She had long, light blue hair that faded to white as it fell to her shoulders. Her eyes were blue, and her slanted eyebrows reflected serenity. She had a slim but slender figure. She wore a white shirt with blue details that left her shoulders bare, and a soft lilac skirt that started from the upper part of her stomach and went down to her shin. It had a slit that revealed almost her entire right leg and was paired with black boots. Finally, she carried in her hand a kind of magic staff that ended in a crescent moon shape with a blue stone in the middle. It's a great pleasure to meet you, Sekiryuutei. My name is Sion, and I'll help you in any way I can. The girl said calmly. The pleasure is mutual, Sion, and I would appreciate it if you called me Issei. Sekiryuutei is just a title. Issei said with a smile. If you ask, that's fine. Replied the blue-haired girl. After the presentation, the three leaders and the two young men discussed possible strategies to use against Oberon. Okay, that's all, be careful, guys. Dihin warned the two young men. Issei, I'll take care of explaining your absence for a week to Rossweisse. Auden said, getting a nod from the boy. After this, both young men began their journey towards that ancient fortress. For the first 3 days, Issei and Sion didn't talk much, mainly because Issei didn't know what to talk to her about and because they needed to agree on some last minute details regarding strategy. Then, on the night of the 4th day, Issei decided to start a conversation with her. Sion. With all the last minute details, I still don't even know what kind of magic you use. Issei said as an excuse to start a conversation with the elf. Well, I specialize in water magic and some healing spells too. Sion replied. And you, Issei. The girl corrected herself after remembering her previous request. Issei smiled at being called that. But he still addressed him formally. Well, ever since Auden adopted me when I was 7, he helped me with my sacred gear, and he also saw that I was compatible with fire and ice magic. The boy listed, looking at the girl who nodded at his words. Then, as I trained with Thor, I also learned to wield lightning magic. Issei concluded. Wow. 3 very powerful spells if used correctly. Sion added. And how did she get to Asgard? The girl didn't take a second to regret asking that question when she saw that Issei's face became a little more somber. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for you to remember anything bad. Sion apologized quickly. No. It's okay. Since we're going to be working together, this will help improve trust between us. Then Issei told him all about his childhood, that before all this he lived in Japan, moved with his parents, and that same night they were attacked by a group of fallen angels, without mentioning Kakabiel's name, and finally how he met Auden, Gondel, and Rossweisse. When she mentioned Rossweisse's name, the elf could see the affection and love in her words when the girl's name came up. Well. If you don't mind, Sion. I'm curious about your blue hair. I've never seen an elf with that hair color. Issei said. In response to what the boy said, the girl only showed a sad smile. After this, she told Issei the story of how she never knew her parents, but that she had this hair color since she was little. Of course, it wasn't easy for her to adapt, since with that hair color she was always the center of attention or the target of ridicule from other elves, since they all had blonde hair, until their leader Hyoudou took her into his family, and from there she met Lifa and her older sister, who always treated her like another sister. After recounting her story, the girl's eyes were watery, almost on the verge of tears, as she recalled her past. What idiots. Issei said out of nowhere. Huh. The boy's words puzzled Sion. I'm saying those guys who made fun of your hair color are idiots. Personally, I think you have beautiful hair. I'm sure many elves were envious of you. Issei said with a smile. Sion's reaction to Issei's words was that of any girl. A slight blush crept across her cheeks. It wasn't because he told her her hair was beautiful, as she'd heard that from Lifa and Lifa's older sister as well. It was because a boy was saying it, and that boy was none other than the Sekiryuutei himself. Thank you. Was all Sion said, looking away and shyly playing with her hair. After this conversation, the two boys decided to continue talking about topics such as life in Japan, its customs, and so on. After a few hours, they decided to rest so they could set off again early the next day for the abandoned fortress where Oberon was located. Meanwhile, in a very distant fortress guarded by several rebel elves, in one of the main halls, one could see a kind of cage in which two beautiful elves were kept. The first one has straight blonde hip-length hair, which she pulls back into a ponytail with a light green, almost white flower-shaped headband with a dark green stripe along the edge. She has pointed bangs, and she reveals a small portion of her forehead by sweeping her hair to the left. Two of her front strands are braided, framing her face. She also has black eyelashes and striking green eyes, as bright as phosphorescent green, resembling emeralds. She wears a green and white outfit with some brown accents, but it's tattered, as if she's been in a fight recently. The second one had slightly darker skin, long platinum blonde hair that flowed down her back, bright red eyes, and her outfit was a bit more daring than the other elves. A black bra with a short rather long dark vest, purple shorts with matching stockings, black boots, and blue lipstick on her lower lip, which, like the first elves, was stained as if she had just come out of a battle. Both elves were known as Lifa and Yao respectively, who had slight cut wounds on their bodies, and were chained by their arms and legs, and were sitting with their backs against the wall of the cage. Yao. Do you think someone will come to help us like our parents? Lifa asked, her voice sounding like she'd been crying. I don't know, Lifa. What I do know is that our sisters cannot come, as they were chosen as the reincarnations of the goddesses. Yao replied to her companion. And our parents? I don't think they'll come in person since we're in a restricted area on the border between Alfheim and Svartalfheim. But I'm sure they'll send someone. I hope so. Yao replied. For a couple of minutes there was a deathly silence between the two elves, which was broken by Lifa. You know, Yao. There's only one thing I regret not doing before all this happened. Lifa confessed. Me too, for some reason I think we both regret not having done the same thing. Was the dark elf's reply. In the minds of both girls appeared the image of a certain brown-haired young man with platinum blonde tips whom they had met when they were 10 years old. Issei. Was what both elves thought in unison as they recalled a certain event at the academy. Flashback begins. In one area of the academy, two elf girls were being harassed by several boys. The one who seemed to be the leader approached them. Look what we have here. Said the one who seemed to be the leader of those children in a mocking voice. If they aren't two of my future wives in my harem. Upon hearing what the child said, both women reacted with disgust. I'd rather be dead than be with someone as disgusting as you. Yao replied, making the leader of those children furious. I see. Well, we'll just have to tame you and you won't say the same thing. The boy continued, insisting. Besides, inferior races must bow down to the Asgardians. The boy spoke arrogantly. We will never bow down to someone like you. Being the son of a god doesn't give you the right to treat us as an inferior race. Lifa said, helping her friend. Looks like I'll have to punish you. And I'd better start. Now. And the boy unleashed a blast of magic at both elves, who weren't expecting it and closed their eyes, bracing for the blow. Which never came, as the blast encountered something in its path and exploded, creating a cloud of smoke. As the smoke cleared, Yao and Lifa saw only the back of a boy with brown hair tipped with platinum blonde, holding something that looked like an ice shield on his left arm. The other boy, seeing the one who had stopped his attack, was filled with rage. It had to be you who interrupted me. Issei. She said, spitting out the name like poison. The two elves, upon hearing the name of the boy who saved them, recognized it but couldn't place it. Issei ignored the words spoken by that child and turned his gaze behind him. Are you alright? Issei asked the two elf girls. Why yes, thank you. Yao replied, while Lifa simply nodded. I'm glad. She replied, smiling at the girls. And you leave them alone. Girls should be treated as well as possible. TCH. Don't come lecturing me on ethics. I don't care if you're the son of Odin, one of these days you'll see what I'm capable of. Said the boy as he left, followed by his companions. Seeing that there was no need to fight, Issei simply sighed and turned to the elves, offering them both hands to help them up, as they had fallen to the ground in shock at the boy's attack. However, the elves were astonished. They had heard from their parents that Odin had adopted a fourth son, but they had never seen what he looked like. Upon hearing the child's last words, they realized that the boy who had just saved them was Odin's fourth son. Hello, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Hyoudou Issei, but you can call me Ice. The boy said with a sincere smile, pulling both elves out of their trance. Likewise, my name is Hyoudou Issei. Said the bronze-skinned platinum-haired red-eyed elf. Mine is Lifa Marceau. Said the blonde green-eyed elf. From that encounter, both elves and Issei got to know each other better, as did Rossweisse, who, since learning that Issei saved them, was happy to have someone like him by her side, and was also delighted to make new friends. Flashback end. I miss Issei calling me Lifa-chan. Were the thoughts of the green-eyed elf. Me too. Every time Yao-chan called me, my heart skipped a beat. The dark elf agreed with her friend. Yes. Both elves had fallen in love with the same man, they had fallen in love with Hyoudou Issei. Meanwhile, Issei and Sayun continued their journey towards the fortress of the rebel elf Oberon for the next 2 days, and right now they were in the vicinity of the fortress reviewing the plan. Issei, are you sure this is the best plan? The blue-haired elf asked, sounding a little doubtful. Yes, like the Sekiryuutei, this is the best way to act. The boy said, confident in his plan. If you believe so. Well. Let's go, but first let's start kicking ass, then we'll go with Lifa-chan and Yao-chan. The brunette said, heading towards the fortress. As she watched him walk away, the blue-haired elf simply smiled, seeing how the boy Lifa talked about so much cared for both girls. Although, for some unknown reason, it bothered her that he didn't use the chan suffix with her as well. After snapping out of her thoughts, she quickly ran off to keep up with Issei. Stop right there. Identify yourselves. One of the guards shouted at the main gate to both Sayun and Issei. I am your worst nightmare. Issei said simply. Huh? Was all the guard said until an ice fist met his face and he went flying, smashing through the gate on the way down. After you miss. Issei said, bowing and making way for Sayun. The girl only managed a small smile and let out a low giggle at the boy's habits. After talking for 7 days, she was familiar with the boy's character and that he was driven by his instincts, having draconic blood, and could be unpredictable. Thank you very much. Sayun replied, still smiling and playing along with the boy. No sooner had they taken a few steps inside the fortress than another large group of guards blocked their path. We will not allow them to interfere with Lord Oberon's plans. One of them said. Well. If you don't move aside willingly. Issei said threateningly, igniting his arms in flames. Then we'll make you move. And Issei lunged at the group, knocking down guards one after another, while Sayun pulled off those who tried to attack him from behind or finished off those who tried to get up. Shortly before Issei and Sayun stormed the fortress, in the same room where Yao and Lifa were locked in a cage, but now standing before them was a blonde man with green eyes, shoulder-length blonde hair, wearing a long dark green robe and a green cloak. This was Oberon, the leader of the rebel elves. Well. And how are my beautiful girls? Oberon said with an arrogant smile as he stroked Lifa's face, who desperately tried to pull her face away from his hand. Leave her alone, pig. Yao shouted at Oberon, who fixed his gaze on her and moved until he was in front of her. Well, it seems someone's angry. Oberon said again, stroking Yao's chin with the index finger of his right hand, until she, in a swift movement, managed to bite his finger to make him back off. Ah. You son of a. Oberon yelled, slapping Yao so hard her lips started bleeding. Yao. Lifa shouted, worried about her friend. After the slap, Oberon grabbed Yao by the hair and lifted her head to make her look her in the eyes. Looks like I'll have to tame you to make you a good girl. I'm sure my boys will be happy to help. The elf said in a sickly voice as he released Yao. As Oberon was about to walk away, part of the ceiling of the room suddenly collapsed between Oberon and the two elves, causing Oberon to stop dead in his tracks and turn around to see who they were. Meanwhile, Yao and Lifa closed their eyes to keep the dust out. They didn't know who could have caused something like that until. Honestly. I don't think this was the best entrance. Said a female voice that the elves recognized. Sayun. Has come to save us. But it's impossible for her to take on all the guards alone. Lifa and Yao were thinking until they heard a second voice. Oh come on Sayun. Admit that deep down you liked our entrance. Who would imagine that they're going to be attacked from the roof? Replied a male voice. That voice. It can't be. It's. Issei. Both elves said, feeling a torrent of emotion such as doubt, nervousness, or joy, among others. Are. Those voices. Yao-chan. Lifa-chan. Issei asked as his figure appeared, looking straight at the girls who, upon seeing Issei, had the same reaction. He looks very handsome in the Einerjar armor. Yao and Lifa thought in unison. Who dares to break into my fortress? Oberon shouted as a blue-haired elf and a man in armor appeared as the smoke cleared. Sayun, could you untie Yao-chan and Lifa-chan? The boy asked the girl. I'll take care of that guy. He said as the blue-haired girl nodded in agreement and went to untie the girls, while Issei headed towards Oberon. I demand to know who you are right now. The rebel elf shouted again. I'm the one who will make you pay for wanting to hurt them. Issei said, ready for the fight. We'll see if that's true. Oberon replied, drawing his sword and lunging towards Issei, who easily dodged the elf's thrusting attempts. TCH. Very well, let's see what you do about this. Oberon said, then launched a burst of magic towards Issei, who remained motionless before the threat of the attack, only deflecting it with his left hand, much to the surprise of the blonde elf. How? It's impossible. Oberon muttered, seeing that every attack or thrust he tried to launch at Issei was useless. Are you done? Seriously, the guards out there were way better than you. And with you around, I don't even feel forced to use my ice shield. Issei said in a bored tone. Shut up. Oberon shouted, charging again at Issei, who grabbed Oberon's sword and used his fire magic to reduce it to nothing. At the same time, he launched a powerful kick to Oberon's stomach, sending him flying against the wall and pinning him to it. Damn. Too easy. Issei said, looking at where Oberon had landed, then turning to focus his gaze on the three elves. Sorry I took so long, girls. The boy apologized, only to be knocked to the ground a second later by a yellow blur and a platinum one. Ouch. Girls, what? Issei was about to ask, only to see his two friends sobbing and releasing all the tears they had been holding back. At this, Issei fell silent and did the most logical thing. He hugged them and stroked their hair while whispering that everything was alright, which pleased both elves, while Sayun wore a faint smile. Thank you for coming, Issei. Leafa said, now more recovered, as she wiped away her tears. Were our parents the ones who sent you to Sayun? Yao asked. Exactly, they were yours. Issei was about to say until he saw something he didn't like at all. Upon seeing it, his expression darkened and his bangs covered his eyes, a change that the three elves noticed. Yao-chan. Who made you bleed? The boy asked. Huh? Was the dark elf's response, until she felt Issei's finger trace her lips, making her blush at the boy's sudden touch. Yao-chan. Who made you bleed? Issei repeated the question, showing his finger with Yao's blood on it. The dark elf didn't even know she was bleeding until she remembered that it had to be when Oberon slapped her. It was Oberon. Yao murmured, and Issei turned his gaze towards where Oberon must have been, who was struggling to his feet. I'll be right back, girls. I need to tie up some loose ends, and then we'll all go home. Issei said, walking towards Oberon. Along the way, Issei whispered what seemed to be a spell in Norse, and when it ended, a circle of magic in gold and crimson colors appeared, and from it, a hilt could be seen protruding. Issei grabbed the hilt and pulled the weapon from the magic circle. It was a sword very well known in Asgard. Incredible. Yao said. That's it. Leafa said. Impossible. Sayun said. The sword Issei was currently wielding in his right arm was one of the most famous swords in Norse mythology. This sword was Dane's Leaf. Its hilt resembled a worn bone, and where the hilt met the blade, protruding points appeared. The edge was encircled by Norse runes that shone with a brilliant crimson hue. Oberon, who was now barely able to stand from Issei's tremendous blow, recognized the sword Issei was carrying and was immediately terrified because of what that sword meant. Wait. We can team up. You and I would be unstoppable. What do you say? Oberon pleaded desperately. I'm sorry, but you dared to harm Yao-chan and Leafa-chan. I was hoping to use this sword on someone else. But you've done more than enough. Besides, as you know, every time Dane's Leaf's blade is uncovered, it must take a man's life. And that will be you. Issei said, piercing Oberon's chest in a swift motion, Dane's Leaf reaping the life of the rebellious elf. After this, Issei once again put Dane's Leaf away through the same magic circle and walked back towards the three elves who were impressed that Issei had access to such a powerful weapon from Norse mythology. Issei. That was Dane's Leaf. Right? Leafa asked, just to see if her eyes weren't deceiving her. Yes. My father gave me access to it so I could use it against whomever I saw fit. As I said, I was saving it to use against him. But it seems I've had to use it ahead of schedule. Issei confessed, still in a serious tone, leaving the elves wondering who Issei was referring to with him. Well. It's time to go, girls. Issei said, getting a nod from the three elves. Oh well. Another 7-day trip. Sayun said listlessly. Don't worry about it, Sayun-chan, I left a marker where the meeting was for a quick lap. Issei told the three elves. Issei. Did you ever use Chan with me? Asked a blushing Sayun. I'm sorry, you know, it's just a habit. But if it bothered you, I can call you Sayun again. No. I mean. I don't care. The blue-haired elf said timidly, causing Yao and Leafa to raise an eyebrow at a reaction. Come on girls, let's go already, take my hands and don't let go. Issei said, only to feel two soft sensations on each arm. On his right was Yao and on his left Leafa, both gripping Issei's arms tightly as if their lives depended on it. Well. I guess arms count too. The boy said with a faint blush. Come on, Sayun, or you'll be left behind. Issei warned. Sorry, I'm coming. Sayun replied, clinging to Issei's cloak, though a hint of envy could be seen in her eyes when she saw Leafa and Yao, and then, in a flash, the four of them disappeared. Meanwhile, in the same area where the meeting between Hyoudou, Dihin, and Odin took place, these three were now present, with the addition that Rossweisse wanted to come, because she was worried about her friends Yao and Leafa, and because she wanted to welcome Issei when he arrived. Just then, a magic circle appeared on the ground, so the elves prepared for an attack and took up defensive positions, but they quickly countered because Auden told them they had nothing to worry about, since Rossweisse was already familiar with that magic circle. Okay. We've arrived. Issei said. Girls. You can let go now. Issei spoke again, pulling the three girls out of their trance. They were so comfortable around him that they hadn't even noticed he had arrived. Issei. Yao. Lifa. Exclaimed a familiar blue-eyed platinum-haired girl, greeting and hugging her two friends and kissing Issei on the mouth, leaving Yao and Lifa speechless. You are. Lifa wanted to finish the sentence. Why yes. We're dating. Rossweisse said with a faint blush, having let herself be carried away by the joy of seeing her boyfriend and kissing Issei. Well. Or rather. Engaged. The boy confessed as he hugged Rossweisse around the waist with one of his hands. I'll bide. Lifa whispered. Involved. Yao whispered as well. At that very moment, Issei had to go with Hyoudou, Dihin and Auden to give the mission report, while the four girls stayed behind. Two of them had just suffered a great emotional blow, something that Rossweisse did not overlook. She remembered the looks Yao and Lifa gave Issei at the academy, so she made a decision that, although difficult, she could not leave her friends in that state. You're very lucky, Rossweisse. Take good care of Issei. Yao said with a sad smile. Yes. Congratulations. Lifa said with another sad smile. Thank you, girls. But. What I'm about to ask might surprise you a little, but. Would you be willing to share Issei? Rossweisse asked the two elves. Share. Lifa asked excitedly. But that wouldn't be like our having a. Yao tried to finish the sentence. A harem. Yes. Rossweisse finished Yao's sentence. As you know, Issei is the current Sekiryuutei. And all the previous wielders of the boosted gear have always been surrounded by women. So I wouldn't be the only woman in his life. I say this because before we finished the academy, I saw the looks you gave Issei, and they were full of love. That's why, and because you're my friends, I'm telling you this, and I trust you. I would never let anyone get close to Issei out of self-interest or with the intention of hurting him. Rossweisse said, the last part in a serious tone. On the other hand, Auden has made a pact with the demons, and thanks to that pact, Aleph has been able to create the first set of Asgardian pieces, thus making Issei the first Asgardian with nobility. In fact, I am his queen. Well. One of them, since the process resulted in 2 sets of pieces, so if you want, you can join and spend more time with Issei. And that's all. What do you say? Both Lifa and Yao remained silent, trying to process all the new information, and at that moment Sayun approached Rossweisse. I would also like to join Issei's peerage. Sayun said sincerely, surprising Lifa and Yao, although Rossweisse sharpened her gaze. I understand. And do you have a reason? The Valkyrie asked. I may have only known Issei for a week. But. In that short time I've seen all his good qualities and what he's capable of doing for a loved one. I feel like I could improve my skills with him. Sayun said with a small smile, which brought one to Rossweisse's face. I believe you. Besides. You're also in love with Issei, aren't you? He asked with a smile as he watched the blue-haired girl blush intensely, surprising Yao and Lifa, since they never expected Sayun to fall in love with Issei. And I still don't know if it's love, I mean, I like him, but I still don't know if I can say that I love him. Sayun said more calmly. I see, that's fine by me, we just have to see what Issei thinks. The blue-eyed girl said. And have you two decided what to do? The Valkyrie asked Yao and Lifa, who looked at each other and nodded. I'm glad, but first let's go treat those scrapes and that lip. Rossweisse said, followed by the 3 elves. A short time later, Issei was already waiting for Rossweisse along with Auden, Hyoudou and Dihin, until she arrived with Yao, Lifa and Sayun. I want to tell you something. Said Lifa. And what would that be? Lifa-cham, Issei tried to say, only to be interrupted by the blonde elf's lips as she kissed him while hugging him around the neck. At first, he froze, but then he reciprocated and placed his hands on her waist. After 15 seconds of kissing, they both separated to breathe, leaving a strand of saliva connecting their lips. Wow. Issei said. Issei, I love you and I want to be part of your peerage. Lifa said without a hint of doubt in her voice, leaving Issei surprised, Auden and Rossweisse smiling, and Hyoudou watching the whole scene with a small grin. Seriously, Lifa? Since when? And how do you know about my nobility? He asked, still a little surprised by the sudden confession from one of his friends. Is this for real, Issei? I've felt this way since the first time I met you, and little by little that feeling grew into what it is now. Besides, Rossweisse told us that in the future you'd have to have a harem because you're the Sekiryuutei, and if we agreed to be part of your peerage, we could spend more time together. Lifa confessed, still hugging Issei. I see. Then it will be a pleasure for me to have you in my peerage. And by we you also mean. Issei tried to speak again, only to be interrupted by another pair of lips, this time Yao's, who, like Lifa, clung to the boy's neck and he quickly reciprocated, embracing her by the waist. They continued kissing for another 15 seconds until they separated, leaving a trail of saliva connecting their lips. "Wow. You too, Yao-chan?" Issei asked after the kiss. "Why yes. I feel exactly the same as Lifa," Yao declared. When Yao finished talking to Issei, it was Cyan's turn to make her request. The boy saw the blue-haired girl approaching him. "Wait, Cyan. You're not going to kiss me again, are you?" "I'm just saying this to prepare myself." Upon hearing the boy, Cyan stopped dead in her tracks and imagined kissing him, making him blush. "And no, it's not that. I would also like to join your nobility. Although in the future. Perhaps." Cyan said, thinking the last part. "It will be a pleasure to have you in my nobility. But I would like to have your parents' permission," the boy said, now looking towards Lifa and Yao's parents who had seen the entire kissing scene. "I have no objection if Lifa and Cyan are happy with you by their side. I'm not one to take that joy away from my daughter and Cyan," Hyoudou said honestly. "I say the same about Yao. By bringing her back safely, you've proven yourself worthy of her," Dehan said to Issei. After receiving approval from Hyoudou and Dehan, Issei took his case of pieces from a magic circle and proceeded to draw 2 pawns, one for Yao and one for Lifa, and a bishop in Cyan's case. He thought these pieces were the best for them, gave each of them their respective piece, and prepared to recite the chant. "I, Hyoudou Issei, name you, Cyan, Yao Dushi, and Lifa Marceau, my bishop and pawns, and you swear loyalty to me until the end," Issei said, finishing the chant and watching as the pieces were inserted inside the 3 elves. "Your mother will be very happy to have more daughters-in-law and more grandchildren," Auden declared, making Issei pray to every god in existence, even though one of them was standing right in front of him, and he would have much rather watched Frigg embarrass him with very intimate questions and the like. "Furthermore, tomorrow you must leave on a mission of indefinite duration, but you may go with your nobility," Auden informed his son. "I see. And where would that be?" Issei asked. "You will be the representative of the Nordic faction in the city of Kuo," Auden said, waiting to see what kind of reaction. Upon hearing Kuo's name, Issei was flooded with memories of his childhood friends and, above all, his biological parents. Thinking of them brought tears to his eyes, but a gentle squeeze on his hand distracted him, and he looked in that direction, finding Rossweisse with a smile that he mirrored. He knew she would always support him in any situation, along with Yao, Lifa, and Cyan. After this, the 3 elves, along with Rossweisse, Auden, and Issei, went to the palace of Gladheim to endure the countless questions, taunts, and insinuations of the goddess Frigg, mostly directed at her son rather than the girls. The day after surviving Frigg's endless questioning, they found themselves on the Bifrost Bridge next to a middle-aged man dressed in full golden armor, which revealed his eyes that had a yellow glow and his skin that was darker than the rest. This man was called Heimdall, the warrior who guards the Bifrost Bridge, which connects Asgard with Midgard, the world of humans, N.A. Like the one in the Thor movie. "Issei, it's nice to see you, and Rossweisse is here too. And who are the other ladies accompanying you?" Heimdall asked the boy amicably. "These are Yao, Lifa, and Cyan, new members of my peerage. You know Olaf made me a set of pieces like the ones for the demons, but only 2 came out, and now it's time to recruit people." Issei replied to Heimdall's question. "I see, I had heard something about that. Lord Auden also informed me that you had a new mission in Kuo," Heimdall said, receiving a nod from Issei. "Very well, everyone line up there and I'll send you to Kuo." "Okay, thank you very much, Heimdall," Issei said to the man in golden armor. After the group positioned themselves where Heimdall indicated, they glowed for a few seconds, heading towards where Issei and his peerage's new home would be. Meanwhile, in the city of Kuo, a blonde boy of the same height as Issei stood right in front of what would be the home of the representative of the Nordic faction and his nobility. It seems there's no one here since there are no lights on. What choice do I have? I'll just have to wait," said the boy, agreeing to enter the house through the front door. Meanwhile, in 3 different places, a white-haired girl with blue-green eyes, a blonde with violet eyes, and another blonde with blue eyes, were looking nostalgically at a photo where they appeared alongside a brunette who was Hyoudou Issei. Ice-chan Icon. The 3 girls thought in unison, thinking of their childhood friend, from whom they hadn't heard in a long time, unaware of everything that had happened to Issei and his parents there, and they were worried about never seeing him again, since the 3 of them had several things to confess to him. Chapter 4. Night was falling in Kuo City, and people were preparing to close their shops and finish the last errands of the day. Meanwhile, in one of the city's alleyways, a magic circle began to glow, giving way to 5 figures. 4 female and 1 male. These were Rossweisse, Yao, Cyan, Lifa, and Issei, who arrived in Kuo as representatives of the Nordic faction. The group decided to leave the alley when they saw that everything was clear and immediately began to admire the city's buildings. Wow. I have to admit it's a beautiful city. Yao commented as she looked at the surrounding buildings, while her elf companions could only nod in agreement. Rossweisse wasn't that impressed because she wanted to investigate all of Japan's customs, traditions, food, etc. All this to better understand the culture of her fiancé and future husband's country of origin, although she had to admit that seeing him in person was completely different and she was already looking forward to visiting a temple or two with Issei. Meanwhile, Issei could only admire with nostalgia the streets of the city that was once his home and remember his childhood friends, wondering if they were alright. The boy was snapped out of his trance by the voice of his platinum-haired fiancé. Ice. Can you guide us to the house Auden got for us? Mainly because you're the only one who knows the city. Rossweisse asked her fiancé. Sorry girls. The address Otu-san gave us is near where my parents' old house used to be. Follow me. Issei replied as he started walking with the girls of his nobility behind him. A little over 10 minutes walk and the group managed to reach the small and humble house that Auden had provided for them. Seriously. Father doesn't know the meaning of moderation. Issei said, with an anime-style sweat drop on the back of his neck, just like his female companions. The house currently occupied 3 plots of land in the neighborhood and had about 4 floors. The most surprising thing is that none of the neighbors seemed to complain, and if the house looked like this on the outside, they didn't want to imagine what it looked like on the inside. They stood for a few more seconds admiring their house until Sayun noticed with surprise how light was reflecting off one of the windows. Guys. I think there's someone inside. The blue-haired elf warned the group, who immediately noticed the light from the window. Ice. Did Auden tell you anything about there being a guest? The Valkyrie asked, only to receive a denial from the boy. So. Is he a thief? Lifa asked. I have no idea. But he dared to enter our house. So I plan to teach him a little lesson. Issei said with a sharp look, cracking his knuckles. The group entered the house silently and saw how it was decorated with modern and expensive furniture, where there was no separation between the kitchen and the living room. At that same moment they saw that someone in the kitchen was raiding the refrigerator. I don't know about you guys. But I don't see him as very worried when he even has time to raid our fridge. Yao remarked. Well. Let's teach him the lesson he deserves. Issei whispered, approaching the refrigerator to neutralize the supposed assailant, who, upon closing the window door and seeing Issei in front of him, became frightened. Ah! Was the scream the group heard. Issei took a closer look at the figure of the supposed assailant, noticing spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. Sting? The boy asked, somewhat surprised after not seeing one of his friends for 2 years. Issei! Exclaimed Sting with his mouth full of food. Gulp. Sorry hahaha, it's been a while since we've seen each other, eh? The blonde spoke again. Yes. That's right, and by the way, I'm not the only one here. Issei said, revealing the presence of Rossweisse, Yao, Lifa, and Sayun. It's good to see you again, Sting. Rossweisse greeted with a smile, as did the elf and the dark elf. Hey Rossweisse, Yao, Lifa. It's been a while. Sting replied to the greeting until he fixed his gaze on Sayun. Edo. Who are you? The DS of Light asked. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Sayun, Issei's bishop. The blue-haired elf replied politely. Issei's bishop. Did I miss something? Sting asked his friend. After the blonde boy's question, Issei decided to tell him everything that happened while he was training with Boulder. Let me see if I understand correctly. Now the demons and Asgard have formed an alliance that will soon include both angels and fallen angels. The blonde man asked. Yeah. And now you have 2 sets of pieces like the ones demons have. Yeah. And are you engaged to Rossweisse? Yes. She replied with a shy smile while holding Rossweisse by the waist. Finally. After 5 years of seeing you two flirting, you finally confessed your feelings. Congratulations. Exclaimed the blonde, happy for his 2 friends. Thanks haha. Issei laughed at his friend's words. And Yao and Lifa are also part of your nobility, I suppose? Sting asked again. Yes. Although also. We're his girlfriends. Yao and Lifa confessed in unison. After that, there was silence in the room where Issei felt uncomfortable seeing how his friend reacted. Ooh haha, so what Boulder told me about you having a harem was true. Announced the blonde DS. Did you and Boulder Nai already know? Issei asked, a little surprised to see that both his brother and friend knew about his situation. Yes, your mother contacted Boulder and told him that. At first, I didn't believe it. I mean, how could you have a harem if you were incapable of confessing to Rossweisse? Sting said, much to the embarrassment of Issei and the Valkyrie. So, is Sayun one of your girlfriends too? The blonde asked again, now just out of curiosity, causing the blue-haired elf to blush. No, she's not my girlfriend. Issei replied. So why don't we stop talking about me and talk about you? How was your training? Issei asked Sting. Well, I don't have much to say. Sting replied, crossing his arms. Although, I must say, the first few months were hell. Muscles and bones I didn't even know I had ached, but now I have better control over my magic. The blonde said, raising and enveloping his fist in a white sphere before dissolving it. Wow, that's good to hear. Issei said, happy that his friend was managing to control his magic better. The group spent a couple more hours talking and discussing different topics until Sting decided to make an announcement. Issei, I would like to join your peerage. Sting said seriously, leaving Issei somewhat surprised to see his friend like this. Is there a special reason why you want to join my peerage? Issei asked. Not really. But you helped me when I arrived in Asgard out of nowhere, so it's only fair that I help you now in any way I can. The blonde man reasoned. You know you don't have to do it. I know, but I want to. He continued, trying to convince the DS of the light. Alright. Issei said, then took out his case of pieces, which was already missing a bishop, 2 pawns, and a queen. I wonder which one will suit you best. The boy said thoughtfully. And what about this one? Sting asked as he picked up Issei's wild card piece. Oh, that one. I don't know. When I got the pieces, that one came out after I created the 2 complete sets. I have another one like that. Issei explained to the blonde, revealing the origin of the piece. The blonde DS stood for a few more seconds admiring the piece, which was like a fusion between a bishop and a rook, until out of nowhere, the piece began to glow in the blonde's hand and entered it. Everyone in the room stared at the blonde man, wondering what he had done. Edo. I swear I haven't done anything. Said Sting, now staring in awe at the hand that had held the piece just seconds before. That's strange. Logically, I should have had to chant for the piece to enter you. Issei said, puzzled by the event. I suppose we should mention this to Olaf next time we see him. Rossweisse said, winning over the others. Well, I don't think anything will happen to me. Right. And it seems I'm now part of your nobility. Sting remarked with a smile. I suppose so. Issei replied. Guys, we should go get some rest. We have to go to the academy tomorrow. Odin already gave us all the necessary paperwork for our enrollment. Rossweisse continued. And what about Sting? He doesn't have those papers. Yao said. That's true. Lifa added. I don't think there will be any problem solving that. Issei said, and then everyone chose their rooms and got ready for bed. In one of the rooms we could see Issei lying on the bed wearing a short-sleeved shirt and sleep shorts, staring at the ceiling as if it were the most interesting thing in the world, thinking about how he was going to face his childhood friends if he ran into them at the academy. Ice, are you alright? Rossweisse asked, a little worried, as she entered the room wearing a light blue nightgown. Oh. Yeah, it's just that I don't know what to do if I see them. You know. Issei explained, revealing the reason for his nervousness. Don't worry about it, darling. Rossweisse said softly, going to hug Issei. I'm sure they'll understand eventually. But what if, after I tell them everything that happened to me, they leave and distance themselves from me out of fear? Issei asked, a little worried. Don't be so negative, Ice, you'll see how happy they'll be to see you. The Valkyrie tried to cheer up her boyfriend. I hope so, Rose-chan. Issei said as he hugged Rossweisse and drifted off to sleep to face the new day tomorrow. A new day dawned over Kuo City, and the city streets began to fill with people marching to their respective jobs and students heading to their respective high schools or academies, one of them being the famous Kuo Academy, which, years ago, was an exclusively female academy, but a couple of years ago that changed and it became co-ed. Many boys applied to attend this academy hoping to be surrounded by beautiful women, but very few, if any, of them succeeded, since many of them were simply perverts. Entering through the main door of the academy was a beautiful girl of average height, dressed in the female academy uniform. She had long white hair that reached her mid-back, blue-green eyes, and a bracelet with an M on her right wrist. This girl was known as Momo Hanakai, a member of the Kuo Academy Student Council. Momo-chan. Exclaimed 2 voices that the white-haired girl recognized. Those voices belonged to 2 of her childhood friends. One of them had long blonde hair that reached her mid-back and bright blue eyes. What stood out most was that she wore a blue clip that resembled a butterfly. This girl's name was Sina Kashiwazaki. The second one was a blonde girl, a little darker than the first, with violet eyes, and she was a little taller than Sina and Momo. Her hair was tied with a ribbon in a side ponytail. This girl's name was Mai Kawakami. Of course, just like Momo, both wore the Kuo Academy female uniform and were Issei's 3 childhood friends along with Irina. Good morning Sina-chan, Mai-chan. Momo replied to her friend's greeting. The 3 girls walked silently towards the entrance together, ignoring the perverted stares of the boys, especially from a boy with glasses and another with a shaved head. You've also realized what day it is, right? Sina asked her friends. Yes. Today marks 10 years since I-chan left. Momo said sadly. Do you think He'll come back someday. Or has he forgotten about us? Mai asked, sounding worried. The blonde with violet eyes spoke, and there was a rather awkward silence. Neither of them knew what to say, but since the boy had left Kuo, they had never received any calls or attempts at communication from him. Gee girls, I have to go to the student council room. So Nakaichu asked me to sort out some paperwork. Momo said hurriedly, heading towards the room while her classmates decided to wait for her in the classroom. The white-haired girl arrived at the living room and, after closing the door, let out a sigh. Whenever one of them brought up the subject of Issei, the atmosphere around them became uncomfortable, so she decided to make an excuse and go to the first place that came to mind. "Good morning, Momo-chan," said a girl, startling the white-haired girl. The owner of the voice was a girl with brown hair tied in 2 braids and eyes of the same color. She also wore a blue headband adorning her hair and, of course, the female uniform. "Ria-chan. Don't scare me like that," Momo said when she saw that the only person present in the room was one of her friends, Ria Kusaka. "I'm sorry, haha." The girl apologized to the white-haired girl until she noticed she was a little discouraged. "Momo-chan, are you alright? You're not sick or anything, are you?" Ria asked, a little worried about her friend. "Huh? No, don't worry. It's just that today is a difficult day for me," Momo replied, looking at the ground with a sad face and unconsciously touching her bracelet. Ria, seeing her friend's actions, knew perfectly well what was happening to her. "Momo-chan. It's about that boyfriend of yours from childhood that you told me about, right?" "Why yes. It's been 10 years since he left," Momo confessed. "Wow. For you to still be thinking about him after 10 years, he must be a great guy." "Of course it is," Momo said with a slight smile. Ria, seeing her companion smile, noticed that every time the white-haired girl spoke about that boy, she spoke like someone in love, so she decided to tease her a little. "Ooh. Now I understand," Ria said with a smile that had a slightly wicked tinge, catching Momo's attention. Seeing that smile, Momo knew the brunette was up to something. "What do you understand?" the white-haired girl asked uncertainly. "Now I know why you reject so many guys' invitations when we go out here at the academy," Ria said, getting up from her chair and pointing an accusing finger at Momo. "It's because you want him to come back so you can confess to him and have lots of lovey-dovey with him," Ria finished with a smile. The white-haired girl took only a few seconds to react until, in a split second, her face turned completely red. What are you saying, Ria-chan? "Why you're wrong," Momo said nervously, unable to stop herself from imagining a more grown-up Issei kissing her passionately and then doing things unsuitable for minors. Faced with her own imagination, the white-haired woman covered her face with her hands in an attempt to banish those kinds of thoughts. "Aha. Judging by your face, I can tell you imagined a steamy scene with him. Right, Momo-chan. Although maybe Mai-san and Sina-san feel the same way about him, but don't worry, I'll help you," Ria said happily with a smile and a thumbs up, much to the white-haired girl's embarrassment. I have to go to class," Momo said hurriedly, her face still red, leaving Ria behind. As she rushed out of the student council room, the white-haired girl almost tripped over a girl with short blue hair and darker blue eyes. "Ria-san, is something wrong with Momo-san?" asked the blue-haired girl. "Oh, good morning, Yura-chan, and as for Momo-chan, it's nothing serious, haha," Ria laughed. The girl, now identified as Yura, upon hearing her fellow student council members' laughter, could be sure that the brunette had said something to make the white-haired girl leave so red and flustered. Meanwhile, on the way to the academy, we see Issei along with the rest of his peerage, except for Sion, since she would later begin working as the academy's librarian. "Sion is so lucky to be able to stay home while we have to go to class, and on top of that, wearing these uniforms," said Sting, who was wearing the academy uniform casually with his shirt collar turned up. "Now there are 2 of us, friend. Now there are 2 of us," Issei said, sharing his friend's opinion, although he was more appropriately dressed in the uniform. "Well, I like it, I think it's cute," said Lifa, looking at her female academy uniform. Yao and Rossweisse shared her opinion. "The uniforms look great on you girls," Issei said to his girlfriends, which caused Yao and Lifa to blush since they weren't used to his compliments yet, and Rossweisse to smile. The group walked through the streets of Kuo for about 10 more minutes, and when they passed through the gates, many students began to whisper about who the new ones would be. "Yes. 3 more beauties for Kuo. They're beautiful. After class I'm going to ask the girl with the red eyes out." "Me, the one with the green eyes. The platinum-haired girl is mine." These were some of the comments from the men at the entrance, making the girls uncomfortable as they listened, while Issei had to resist or his dragon instincts would surface. "Kai, those 2 boys are so cute. I love the rebellious look of the blue-eyed boy. Well, I'll take the other one. I'd love to see what's under that shirt." Now it was the boy's turn, who could only laugh nervously at the girl's comments, although Rossweisse, Yao, and Lifa were in charge of keeping away those interested in Issei with a sharp look and a small dark aura. Wow, partner. Your girls sure know how to intimidate someone when they want to. Drake spoke through the telepathic connection with Issei. Hey Drake, it's about time you spoke up. I haven't heard from you since before the incident with Oberon. Issei replied. Meh. That guy was so weak and lazy that I was too lazy to watch you beat him up and decided to sleep until now. On the other hand, are you nervous about seeing them again? Well, the truth is, I don't even know what to do when I see them. Issei said depressedly. Well, what are you going to do? Say hello. And maybe then endure the beating they give you for not writing or calling in 10 years. But other than that, nothing else. Drake replied nonchalantly. You sure know how to cheer people up. Issei said sarcastically. You're welcome, partner, it's my pleasure to help you. Replied the dragon, ending with a laugh. Damn steroid-infected lizard. Issei said, ending the conversation with the Welsh dragon. By the time they entered the academy, the group had gone to deliver the required documents to the administration, as well as request some for Sting to deliver them the following day. When they left the office, classes had already started, so they quickly headed to their respective classroom, which was 2C. Luckily, everyone would be in the same room. Once they arrived, they proceeded to knock on the door, so the professor opened it for them, and they explained the reason for the delay, as they were new to the academy. Alright class, today we have only 5 new classmates. The teacher announced, making the class eager to see what their new classmates looked like, although some of them already had an idea of who they were. Please, everyone, come forward and introduce yourselves properly. The teacher said. Issei, Rossweisse, Lifa, Yao, and Sting obeyed, much to the delight of the boys, who were thrilled to have 3 more beautiful women in the class, and the girls, who were delighted to have 2 new princes. The reason Lifa and Yao didn't stand out was because they had used a small illusion spell to conceal their Alfiers. My name is Sting Eucliffe, I hope we get along. Sting said, finishing with a smile that caused some girls to blush slightly, and the men to boo a little at the sight of another Bishonen. Hi, my name is Lifa Marceau, and to make it clear, I have a boyfriend. Lifa said, smiling as she tried to get the boys to stop staring at her, though all she managed to do was make them glare at the 2 boys who were with her. My name is Hyoudou Issei, and just like Lifa, I already have a boyfriend. Yao said, giving a small bow that only made the men sadder. I'm Rossweisse, and I don't have a boyfriend. The Valkyrie said, making the men excited at least to have a chance with one of the new girls. However, I am engaged. She finished with a smile and a slight bow, breaking the hearts of the men in the class and surprising the rest by being engaged at such a young age. My name is Issei Hyoudou, I hope we can all get along. He said with a smile, eliciting the same reaction as Sting. After their presentations, the professor allowed some of his students to ask several questions, some of which focused on hobbies, favorite foods, or where they came from. Rossweisse, you said you had a fiancé. Is he in the Scandinavian countries? One of the girls asked the platinum-haired girl. Well, about that. He's right here next to me. The girl confessed with a smile, hugging Issei's left arm. This led to the men in the classroom, with the exception of the teacher, focusing their attention primarily on Issei, and some girls became depressed upon seeing that one of the newly appointed Norse princes was already engaged. The students wanted to ask more questions, but the teacher stopped them, saying that they had to start the class now. So Issei's group took their seats, and the first day of classes began. A few hours later it was time for a break, and everyone decided to go and eat their lunches in a relaxed way in the shade of one of the academy's trees. Elsewhere in the same area, Issei's trio of childhood friends were having their respective lunches, taking advantage of the fact that Momo didn't have any student council work to do. Although they were somewhat curious to hear many people talking about the new students, they didn't listen or understand anything, since it wasn't the best day for them. Tell me, what are the new guys like? Asked a student at the next table to her friend. Well, one of them is called Sting, and he seems like a rebellious boy, but he's quite charming and funny. And the other boy? He's friends with Sting and, unlike him, he's more formal. And what's his name? If I remember correctly, I was told that his name was Issei. Upon hearing that name, Momo, Mai, and Sina immediately stopped eating and stared in disbelief, their eyes wide with disbelief. Sina. Momo. Did you hear the same thing I did? Mai asked. I think so. Sina replied. The 3 girls quickly went to the next table with a student who said Issei's name. Sorry to bother you girls, but you said that one of the new boys is named Issei, right? Momo asked, hoping it wasn't just a coincidence. Yes. Why do you ask, Hanakai-san? And by any chance you wouldn't happen to know her last name, would you? Was the question Sina asked. Actually, he said it in his introduction. I think it was Hyoudou, maybe. The girl replied, receiving a nod from her friends. Meanwhile, Momo, Mai and Sina were processing the girl's words, saying that one of the new students was named Issei Hyoudou. In their minds, they told themselves it had to be him. There couldn't be many Issei Hyoudous in the world. But they still had to find him. They wanted to see for themselves. Do you know if it's nearby? Momo asked the girl. Well, I think he went to one of the trees in the yard to have lunch. As soon as the three girls knew the location of that boy who was supposed to be Issei, their childhood friend whom they hadn't seen for 10 years, they hurried out of the dining room towards the courtyard. Meanwhile, Issei, Rossweisse, Sting, Yao, and Lifa were in the middle of lunch, although the first of them was somewhat depressed at not having seen any of his old childhood friends. Rossweisse, who was sitting next to him, saw the sad expression in Issei's eyes, so she tried to talk to him. Ice, are you okay? The platinum-haired girl asked worriedly, pulling Issei out of his little trance and gaining his attention. Oh yes. Don't worry, Rose-chan. Issei tried to reassure his fiancée. It's because of them, isn't it? Rossweisse asked again, drawing the attention of Sting, Yao and Lifa, especially the latter two upon hearing the word them. When the boy saw that his fiancée knew what he was thinking, he could only let out a sigh. It's true. On one hand I want to see them and say hello, but another part of me wants to avoid them. I'm nervous. Maybe it sounds stupid, but I don't really know how to handle the situation. I don't even know if they're still in the city. Or if they still remember me. Issei said, his head bowed, prompting Rossweisse to hug him to try and comfort him. Excuse me for interrupting, but who are you talking about? Lifa asked. That's right. I didn't tell you guys. Issei replied. A few minutes later, Issei told Sting, Yao and Lifa who the girls they were talking about were and that they were his friends before he arrived in Asgard. Wow, Issei, you haven't been doing this harem thing for very long and you already have 6 girls in it. Sting said mockingly, causing one of Issei's eyebrows to twitch with irritation. Or should I say 7, including Sayun, and I'm sure. Sting continued until 2 punches landed on his head, burying it in the ground. The owners of the fists were Yao and Lifa, who decided to silence Sting quickly. Sting, you need to learn to stop being such a loudmouth. Yao said with a small smile, getting a nod from Lifa herself. At this, Issei couldn't help but let out a small laugh, knowing that even if they didn't end up accepting him, he wouldn't be alone. Once the boy was in good spirits again, he was about to have lunch when. Ikanai-chan. 3 voices asked from right behind the boy, making him open his eyes, since there were only 3 people calling him that. On the other side, the girls reached the tree where the group of new students was. When they got there, they saw 3 girls and 2 boys, but one of them was blonde, so that couldn't be him. That left only the other boy who had his back to them. When the girls saw the color of his hair, they had a tiny glimmer of hope that the boy was Issei, so they called him by the name they used to call him when they were little and waited to see if he would react. Issei slowly turned his head to see who had called him that. When he turned completely, he saw 3 beautiful girls. At first, he was surprised since he didn't recognize them, but there was something about them that caught his attention. One of them had a butterfly-shaped clip. Another wore her hair in a side ponytail held in place by a ribbon. And the last one was wearing a bracelet with an M on one of her wrists. Upon seeing those 3 items, the boy's eyes widened as he realized who they were, for 10 years ago he had given those objects to his friends. His 3 childhood friends were standing before him. The boy couldn't help but admire how beautiful they had become during his time away, but he also noticed nervousness and anxiety on their faces, leading him to believe they had heard rumors, and, upon learning that one of the new students was named Issei, had come to verify if he was indeed the Issei they believed him to be. The boy stopped his train of thought and a small smile spread across his face. It's been a while, Mai-chan. Sina-chan. Momo-chan. The 3 girls, upon hearing the boy call them, immediately recognized him as Issei, and they couldn't hold back the tears that streamed down their faces at seeing him again. Ikanai-chan. The girls shouted again, rushing into a hug with the brunette, sending him to the ground and surprising some students who were in the area. Girls, Issei tried to speak, only to be interrupted by them. Idiot. Why didn't you call even once during all these years? Sina asked, grabbing and shaking Issei by the neck. That's it. Why? Mai insisted, repeating the same question, now shaking Issei by the neck. As Sina and Mai shook him, Issei's eyes began to swirl like small eddies from the slight dizziness. Girls, leave him alone, I'm sure Ai-chan has a reasonable explanation for us. Momo said, acting like the pacifist. Wow, thanks Momo-chan. You're taking too long to tell us why you haven't called even once in 10 years. Exclaimed the white-haired woman, shaking the boy much harder. This action caused a little anime sweat drop to form in the 5 girls who saw her acting as the mediator, and now she was the one shaking him much more forcefully than Sina and Mai had before. On the other hand, Sting was resisting the urge to burst out laughing at the sight of his friend being tossed around like a rag doll. After much jostling, Issei told them it was a long story, but he would explain it after class. Then Issei began the introductions between the two groups, with Rossweisse introducing herself as a friend so as not to shock Issei's friends. After about 10 more minutes of chatting, the bell rang, announcing the continuation of classes, so both groups went to their respective classrooms. At that same moment, a certain red-haired girl with blue-green eyes and a voluptuous figure, wearing the female uniform, was looking at the group from one of the windows of the old academy building, especially at a certain brown-haired boy with platinum blonde tips. "Akeno, can you tell me who that boy with the platinum-tipped hair is?" the redhead asked as she accepted the tea from the girl known as Akeno. From what I've heard, his name is Hyoudou Issei, and he just arrived from the Scandinavian countries. Are you interested in him, Rias? Yufufufu. Replied the girl known as Akeno, who had black hair tied in a ponytail with an orange ribbon and violet eyes. Like the redhead now known as Rias, she also possessed an exuberant body. I sense something powerful in him. Kaneko, keep an eye on him. Hi Butchu. Replied a girl with short platinum hair and amber eyes like a cat's. Her hair was adorned with a cat clip. After the last few hours of boring classes ended, Issei's group met up with Mai, Sina, and Momo at the exit. Guys, go ahead. I'll accompany Mai-chan, Momo-chan, and Sina-chan to their homes. Issei said, remembering that the girls lived a bit far from their houses. The group agreed, allowing Issei to spend some time with his childhood friends, thus ending with both groups going their separate ways. How have you girls spent the last 10 years? Is everything alright with your parents? Issei asked, thus beginning a conversation. My family will be out of Japan for several months on a business trip, so right now I'm living alone at home. Sina explained. My mother accompanied my father to his martial arts tournaments as always, so like Sina, I now also live alone at home. Mai replied to Issei's question. I still live with my parents and sometimes help them with their restaurant. Momo replied. And you, Issei? How are your parents? Sina asked, but what they didn't expect was for the boy's expression to fall, leading them to assume that something bad had happened to him during his stay in the Scandinavian countries. Are you okay, Issei? Mai asked, now worried. Yes, Mai-chan. Don't worry, in fact, this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Issei said, leaving the three girls somewhat uneasy. That's where Issei told the girls that his parents had died in a violent robbery after living peacefully there for a couple of years, and that after that he stayed with some of his parents' friends until he decided to return to Kuo. Obviously, the boy didn't plan to tell the girls that it was a group of fallen angels who had killed his parents. Oh, we're sorry Ikin, we didn't know. Sina apologized upon learning Issei's story. I already told you it's okay, Sina-chan. Of course you didn't know, and besides, I'm handling it better now. Issei said with a smile, trying to put his friends at ease. They continued talking about various things until they reached a crossroads. Are you sure you don't want to go all the way to the door? Issei asked the girls. Relax, Issei, besides, our houses are close together and you still have a while to walk to yours. Momo replied. Okay, see you tomorrow then. See you tomorrow, Ikinai-chan. The girls said, heading towards their respective homes to end a day that had started badly for them, but ended up being the best day of their lives. Meanwhile, Issei continued walking towards the small house where they lived. He was just crossing one of the city's bridges when he stopped abruptly. Partner, you. Drake, a fallen one has approached. Issei said, barely containing his anger. Hello. Issei heard a voice behind him, so he turned around and saw a black-haired girl with purple eyes and a beautiful figure wearing a uniform from a different academy. Can I help you with something? Issei asked, feigning politeness towards the girl who radiated an aura of a fallen angel. Are you Hyoudou Issei? The girl asked nervously. Yes, why? I was wondering if you have a girlfriend. No, I don't have one. Why? Issei asked, wanting to see what the black-haired girl's intention was. Well. I was wondering if you'd like to go on a date with me. The girl said, blushing slightly. Okay, why not? How does Sunday at noon work for you in the park? Issei asked, agreeing to the dark-haired girl's request to see what her intentions were. Why yes. I'll wait there. She exclaimed excitedly as she said goodbye to the boy. The boy also walked away, though he was curious as to why a Nekomata girl was following him. But he had a feeling he would soon find out why. Partner. Are you sure about this? More than ever, Drake, I also want to know the reason why there are fallen in Kuo. Okay, I respect your decision, mate. Although I'm still worried. And what are you worried about? Issei asked curiously. About how you'll explain to Rossweisse that your first date in Kuo will be with a fall ha 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 ha. The dragon laughed loudly at the situation that awaited its host. Upon hearing Drake's words, the boy's body tensed and he began to sweat slightly. I'm sure if I explain it to him, he'll take it well. Right? Issei asked nervously and uncertainly. Women are sometimes a mystery, buddy, you just pray your mom didn't teach her the advanced level of that aura technique hahaha. The dragon spoke again, ending with another laugh. At this, Issei could only let out a sigh and watch as he faced having to break the news to his fiancée. Chapter 5. It was a beautiful night in the city of Kuo, and its inhabitants were slowly going to sleep so they could work the next day. Although in a certain house it was quite the opposite. What have you done? Exclaimed a certain platinum-haired blue-eyed girl, somewhat furious, throwing a toaster at Issei. Rose-chan, calm down please, let's talk like people. Issei tried to say, only to be interrupted when he had to dodge a pair of scissors, strangely aimed at his manhood. Behind one of the living room sofas were the rest of the house's inhabitants, namely Sion, Yao, Lifa, and Sting. Phew, that was close. Sting said as a shiver ran down his spine watching his friend dodge the scissors that were headed for his manhood by centimeters. Do you think Issei will be alright? Sion asked, sounding worried. Yes. Or so I hope. Lifa replied somewhat uncertainly, although if she were in Rossweisse's position, she would have reacted the same way. I hate to say it, but Issei brought it on himself this time. He promised Rossweisse a date, and in less than 24 hours, he accepts a date with some unknown fallen angel. Yao commented as she watched a chair fly towards Issei. Drake, a little help over here. Issei said to the dragon as he dodged a chair. We're sorry, but the dragon you just called is either hunting or asleep. Please leave your message after the roar. Roar. Was the response the boy received, even though he knew it was Drake trying to change his voice. You're a coward. I'm not a coward, I'm cautious, which is different, partner. Drake explained. Didn't you dragons like fighting? Well, here's one you can help me with. Exclaimed the boy. Yes. But even dragons know it's pointless to get involved in fights that are already lost, and besides, I already warned you. The dragon replied, cutting off the connection. Please, Rose-chan. Stop for a moment. Exclaimed Issei, and surprisingly, Rossweisse stopped. However, when she looked up, she saw that it was mainly because she had nothing left to throw. You didn't let me finish explaining. Issei continued, speaking to the Valkyrie, who was now trying to relax her breathing. Issei's right about that. You didn't give her time to explain anything after you heard a fallen angel in disguise asking her out. Sting said, peeking his head out from behind the sofa, a move he immediately regretted upon seeing Rossweisse's expression. Sting. Shut up. Were the two simple words Rossweisse uttered. Hi Rossweisse-sama. Exclaimed Sting. I hope your explanation is good, Ice. Rossweisse said with a sour expression. Issei swallowed the small lump in his throat and prepared to explain the situation to Rossweisse. I only accepted because I recognized her energy as that of a fallen angel. It's a good opportunity to learn more about why they're here, although for some reason, the series of murders that occurred has something to do with it. That was the reason. She didn't seduce me or anything. The boy said, trying to calm his fiancée, knowing that with that last sentence, he had a better chance of saving himself. Is that true? Rossweisse asked, her breathing somewhat calmer, but without relaxing her posture. Yes. Issei replied quickly, knowing the Valkyrie was referring to the second sentence. He liked Rossweisse's figure more, but he had to admit the fallen girl wasn't far behind. You're lucky your Valkyrie girlfriend isn't listening to your thoughts right now. The dragon spoke in the boy's mind. Here you know. Rossweisse said, now catching her breath. But that doesn't mean you won't have your first date here with her. The blue-eyed girl continued, her voice tinged with sadness. Rossweisse knew this wasn't the end of the world, but she was excited to be able to walk the streets of her hometown with Issei, just like they had on their dates in Asgard. She was also troubled by the fact that it was a fallen kingdom, the same race that had tried to kill Issei. The Valkyrie began to think about the worst things that could happen to Issei. What if the girl discovered him and attacked? Or what if she led him into an ambush? Issei would be outnumbered and wouldn't be able to fight them all. These and more were the girl's thoughts. Rose-chan, I'll be fine, okay? I can defend myself. Issei said, trying to reassure his fiancée. The aforementioned woman only let out a sigh of resignation upon realizing that she wouldn't convince the boy, so she resigned herself and accepted that he would have the date. Is it safe to go out? Sting asked as he peeked his head out from behind the sofa next to Sion, Yao, and Lifa. Yes. Issei replied. After this minor incident, everyone had dinner without further problems until they went to their rooms to sleep. Rose-chan, are you still angry? Issei asked as he saw the Valkyrie lie down with her back to him. That's not it, Ice. It's just that you can't make decisions like that so lightly. I'm your queen and your fiancé. And as such, you should have consulted me first, and then everyone else. Rossweisse replied without looking at Issei. I'm sorry things turned out this way, Rose-chan, but I want to know why the Fallen are here and also why the demons in the area haven't done anything to prevent these attacks. Issei said, somewhat angry at how the Kuo officials were acting. Besides, one of their servants followed me home. The boy continued, informing the Valkyrie. One of his servants. That means they may have sensed Drake inside you. Rossweisse deduced, turning over in bed. Or maybe they have a hunch. We'll only know tomorrow. Issei replied as he lay down and sighed. I suppose so. But please, be very careful tomorrow. The platinum-haired woman said with a worried expression. Of course, Rose-chan. And so, the two went to sleep waiting to see what would happen on the date between Issei and Yuma. I just want to say that in the last one I completely missed Rainer introducing herself as Amano Yuma, that was all. I'll try not to make those mistakes, even if they're small, they're not pleasant to see. The days passed quickly for Issei and his friends until it was already Sunday, the day of the date with the fallen girl. Right now Issei was in the park waiting for the girl to arrive. He was wearing jeans with red sneakers, a white t-shirt, and over it a red plaid overshirt. While waiting for the girl, the boy stared intently at a piece of paper with a magic circle drawn on it, which a girl dressed in cosplay had given him on the street. He deduced that perhaps the master of the servant who had been following him for the past few days had decided to act. At that very moment a voice snapped him out of his trance. I am sorry, I hope you didn't have to wait too long. Yuma said, wearing a black dress and a light purple jacket. The boy had to admit the outfit suited her. Partner, focus, and remember why you came here. Drake spoke in the boy's mind. I know. Don't worry, I arrived less than 5 minutes ago. Issei replied. Well, shall we go? The boy asked, offering his hand to the girl. Hi. From there, they enjoyed a normal date. First, they took a walk through the nearest shopping mall, where Issei noticed Yuma staring at a red bracelet, so he gave it to her to avoid suspicion. After the shopping mall, they visited the Kuo aquarium, where they saw all kinds of exotic fish. Afterward, they decided to stop at a cafe for ice cream. Yuma had strawberry and Issei had vanilla. While eating their ice cream, they started talking about their hobbies and other current events. In short, the date was very normal, and right now they were heading towards a park. Hey Drake, I don't know about you, but I have to say, the girl is giving a great performance. Issei said, speaking through the mental connection with the Welsh dragon. Partner, to be honest, I think the girl isn't acting. Replied the celestial dragon, greatly surprising Issei. What do you mean by that, Drake? The boy asked, confused. Well, the girl really enjoyed the date. I was on the lookout for any little murderous instinct she might let out, but I didn't notice anything. Perhaps he's more skillful than we think. No idea, we'll just have to see what her reaction is when you unmask her as a fallen angel. Drake finished speaking, ending the connection with his host. When they both finished talking, they arrived at the center of the park, where there was a large fountain with several benches around it. Issei noticed Yuma standing with her back to the fountain, and he saw that she seemed quite restless, as if she were nervous about what was to come next. Edo. Issei-kun, you. Yuma tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out of his mouth. Faced with this, Issei decided to save him the trouble. What you're trying to tell me is that you'll have to kill me now for some reason I don't know, am I right, Yuma-chan? Well, if that's your real name, of course. Issei said, leaving the violet-eyed girl speechless and even more nervous. And I. Go ahead, this is a new experience, since I've never fought a fallen angel before. The brunette continued, activating his boosted gear and creating a barrier around the park. When the girl saw that the boy was more than ready, she became alarmed and began to sweat upon realizing that he was the wielder of one of the celestial dragons. Wait please. I don't want to fight or kill you. Exclaimed the dark-haired woman. Why should I believe you? I already know you're a fallen, and not the only one in the city. And I also know that you're very likely behind all the recent murders. Issei said, beginning to charge a fire attack in his hands. Please, I can explain. The girl exclaimed hysterically, tears streaming down her face, knowing she stood no chance against a wielder of Long-Eyes. Partner, at least give him a chance. Remember what I told you before. I know you don't appreciate the fallen, but not everyone is the same. You shouldn't judge an entire race by the actions of a few individuals. The dragon spoke in Yuma's favor upon seeing his reaction. Upon hearing Drake's advice, the boy gritted his teeth in anger, but he knew the dragon was right, so he deactivated his magic and the boosted gear, much to the relief of the violet-eyed girl. Alright, I'll listen to you. Go ahead before I change my mind. Issei ordered, crossing his arms and fixing his gaze on the girl, making her even more nervous. Well. Starting from the beginning, it's true that my name isn't Amano Yuma, my real name is Rainer. The girl confessed, summoning a pair of black wings on her back. Okay. And why are you in Kuo? Our leader, Azazel Sama, sent a group to keep an eye on any sacred gear users in this area. The dark-haired woman paused to see if the boy was still paying attention. After confirming he was listening intently, she continued. One day, when I arrived at my job in Grigori, I saw an envelope with my name on it. I thought it was nothing important, but I saw a picture of Kalawiner, my best friend, crucified and unconscious with several wounds, along with a note saying I had to go to an address in the city or I'd never see her again. They also told me I had to cooperate with this plan or she'd suffer even more. That's why they sent me to find you as a possible sacred gear user. And who was it that left her in such a state? His two companions on this mission, Hyoudou Issei and Middled, apparently follow orders from some cadre who oppose the peace that Azazel-sama wants to propose. Furthermore, when I arrived at the address, an abandoned church, I saw that in addition to those two, there were several exiled exorcists. A fallen angel of cadre level is no joke. Issei muttered. Do you have any idea who might be behind all this? No. But I can assure you that Penemu-sama, Barakiel-sama, and Shemazai-sama are all in favor of Azazel-sama. I can't comment on the others since I don't know them very well. Well, something is something. Oh. And I've also been told that a girl will be arriving in town tomorrow at noon. She's an exiled nun, of average height, with green eyes and a sacred gear called Twilight Healing, capable of healing any race. Her name is Asia Argento, or as she's known in the church, Holy Maiden. Rainer informed the boy, leaving him astonished by the girl's power. If the sacred gear falls into the wrong hands, I don't know what would happen. How did the girl end up exiled? Issei asked curiously. From what I've been told, she was a very well-known and admired nun in the church, as they believed such power was a gift from God. Until one day she healed someone. That someone was a demon, but she didn't know it. When the church found out what happened, they saw that power as an abomination and accused her of heresy, resulting in the girl's exile. Issei summarized the story somewhat sadly, as he struggled to contain his anger. In my opinion, the girl seems like a good person, at least she does in the photo. From what you've told me, it does seem so. After that, she found herself with nowhere to go, so I suppose the fallen angels who opposed Azazel-sama took the opportunity to offer her asylum. Though I think they have worse plans for her. Like what? In the short time I was there, I overheard several exorcists talking about having preparations ready for some kind of ritual. I don't know why, but I think they'll try to extract his sacred gear. He said with a worried tone. Those bastards. Issei muttered through gritted teeth, clenching his fists, knowing what happened to a sacred gear wielder if it was extracted. That's why. Please help me. Rainer exclaimed, surprising Issei with her plea. I don't want my friend to suffer anymore, nor do I want that innocent girl to die because of a madman's machinations. I'll do anything. I'll even offer my body, but please. Help me. The violet-eyed girl begged, tears streaming down her face, even going so far as to offer her body in exchange. Please calm down. Issei said after the girl's outburst. After everything she told him, he decided to give her a chance, just as Drake had told him to. I'll help you, but you shouldn't offer your body to just anyone. Someone else could have taken advantage of you in this situation. Issei said, much to the dark-haired girl's astonishment. Fallen angels usually had beautiful bodies that were irresistible to humans, but here, one had rejected her. What the dark-haired woman didn't know was that the boy wasn't entirely human. And that if she accepted his offer of her body, a certain Valkyrie wouldn't be very happy. Edo. Are you alright? Issei asked the still shocked girl. Huh? Oh, why yes, and thank you so much. The girl said happily, hugging the boy tightly, though inside her fallen angel pride was wounded at having been rejected. Come on. It's done. Issei said, trying to break free from the fallen one's grip until something started to glow in his pocket. What's that? The dark-haired girl asked, surprised by the glimmer coming from one of the boy's pants pockets. Oh. It must be the seal given to me by the familiar of one of the demons in charge of the area. Issei replied calmly, making Rainer very nervous. What? The girl exclaimed hysterically, knowing what would happen to her in demon territory. During these past few days, I felt like someone was following me several times. It seems they saw you when you asked me out and gave me this in case you decided to attack me, and maybe that way I'd be reincarnated. Or so I think. The boy said casually. How can you be so relaxed? The girl continued shouting, on the verge of a breakdown, as she saw the seal's glow increase. Okay. Issei said, trying to calm the fallen angel. I'll leave the seal on the ground, remove the barrier, and we'll leave before they see us. Issei explained as he threw the paper to the ground, undid the barrier, and quickly grabbed Rainer to leave the area via magic circle. Had they both taken a few seconds, they would have encountered a certain Ritit and a brunette. These were Riaz and Akeno, respectively. Riaz was surprised to find no sign of a body, and she realized that perhaps she would never see again the power she needed to face a future commitment. On the other hand, Akeno was somewhat relieved that the boy wasn't there. From the first moment, she hadn't liked her king's plan at all, but she knew of his desperation as his date drew ever closer. After a few more seconds, they both left the park without having accomplished anything. A few blocks away, in one of the alleyways, were Issei and Rainer, having escaped from the park before the arrival of the Grimoire heiress. "Well, I think we're safe now," Issei commented as he leaned out, unaware that he was still holding the girl who had fallen. She was slightly flushed from the sudden contact with him, and her hands had landed on his well-defined abs. Something that, deep down, she didn't seem to mind. "Hey. Are you listening to me, Rainer-san?" Issei asked, seeing that the fallen girl still hadn't reacted. "Why yes, don't worry. And thank you so much for getting me out of there," the girl said, a little nervously. "It's nothing, I think it's about time we each went our separate ways. By the way, when are you planning to do the ritual?" the boy asked Rainer before she left. "The girl will arrive tomorrow, and she'll have to go to the abandoned church on the other side of town, since that's the base they're using. As far as I know, the ritual has to be done on a full moon night. And tomorrow is one of them," the violet-eyed woman informed. "Alright," the boy said with a sigh. "I'll let the rest of my team know, and we'll help you tomorrow night to help your friend." Issei spoke as Rainer nodded gratefully and happily, knowing that at least there would be more people helping. With that last conversation, they both went to their respective homes, as tomorrow would be a rather busy day. Issei arrived home just in time for dinner and explained everything that had happened on his date with the girl, thus putting Rossweisse, Lifa, Yao, and to a lesser extent Sion, at ease. They all agreed to help with the mission, although the Valkyrie did so reluctantly. She still didn't trust the fallen angel, but she would save the nun. A new school day began in Kuo, and as usual, Issei's group attracted attention. But today, the boys were the most excited, all because they'd learned there would be a new and beautiful librarian, Sion, who, of course, used the same spell as Lifa and Yao to hide her ears. Needless to say, book lending increased by 125% that day. It must also be said that the boys at the academy began to envy and hate Issei, one of the Nordic princes. More, since he was a childhood friend of Sina, Momo, and Mai. After this new day of classes, everyone returned to their respective homes, except for Issei and Rossweisse, who decided to take a walk, causing the rest to go ahead and prepare for the mission of the night. The girl's name was Asia Argento, right? Rossweisse asked her fiancé as they strolled near a park. Yes. A girl with blonde hair and green eyes, dressed as a nun. So I don't think it'll be too difficult. The brunette was about to finish his sentence when, upon turning the corner, he bumped into someone, causing them to fall and let out a kaya. Both young men looked down to see who they had bumped into. It was a blonde girl with green eyes, dressed like a nun. Exactly the girl they would have to rescue. I'm sorry. I was distracted talking to my girlfriend and didn't notice. Issei apologized as he helped the girl to her feet. Don't worry. It's my fault too, I'm new in town and I'm lost. I need to find the town's church. The blonde explained. Oh, sorry, my name is Asia Argento. She introduced herself with a lovely smile. It's a pleasure, Asia-san. I'm Issei Hyoudou, but you can call me Issei. This is Rossweisse, my girlfriend. The boy introduced himself, standing next to the platinum-haired girl who greeted him with a smile. We can help you find the church if you want. Rossweisse offered to the green-eyed woman. Thank you so much. Asia exclaimed, putting her hands in a prayer position. May God repay you. The girl said until a loud rumble was heard. Coming from the nun's stomach. We should stop for lunch first. If you want, you can come with Asia. Issei asked. Thank you. But I don't want to take advantage of your kindness. Don't worry, we must help those in need whenever possible. Rossweisse said. Okay. And thank you again. After this brief moment, the group of three headed to a small nearby burger joint after taking a short stroll through the shops. There, both Issei and Rossweisse watched with some amusement as the girl tried to figure out how to eat the burger. Therefore, Issei showed her how she should eat it, since he understood that being in the church, she didn't have many opportunities to go outside. After finishing their meal, the group of three headed towards the abandoned church, which was quite far from the city center. Well, this is the local church. Are you sure you don't want us to walk you to the door? Rossweisse asked the nun. And no, you've already done more than enough by inviting me to eat and guiding me here. The green-eyed girl assured, somewhat nervously. We already told you that's nothing. It's the least friends do. Issei said. Friends. The girl repeated, somewhat incredulous. Of course, today was fun, so maybe we could do it again sometime, don't you think, Rose-chan? Issei asked the blue-eyed girl, who nodded her head. Why yes. It would be so much fun to do it again. Asia replied, though they both noticed the sad tone in her voice, as if she knew there probably wouldn't be another chance. See you next time. The girl said quickly as she entered the church. Before Issei could say anything, the Valkyrie spoke first. Ice, we have to save her no matter what, a person like her can't die. It would be so unfair. The platinum-haired woman said resolutely. Of course, Rose-chan, just a few more hours and Asia will be free. And I hope Rainer is alright. Issei said, though the latter quickly caught Rossweisse's attention. Why the sudden concern for her? The blue-eyed girl asked very seriously, making the boy sweat. And nothing, you know how I am, Rose-chan. Well, that's exactly why. Do you think she's not like those fallen ones who? The girl tried to finish her sentence, but Issei interrupted her. At first I thought so. But Drake made me change my mind. Don't get me wrong, I still have a grudge against them. But I'll give them a small chance before judging them. I understand. That's good, Issei. Rossweisse said. But I'm sure he didn't try to seduce me or anything. Right. Rose-chan didn't try anything. Issei repeated as they both headed towards his house to prepare for tonight's battles. Night fell quickly on Kuo City, and in one of its houses, we can see 5 people ready to go out. So. Is everyone ready? Issei asked in his Einerjar uniform. Let's go save Asia. Rossweisse replied in her Valkyrie costume. I'm already looking forward to seeing which light is more powerful than the other. Said Sting, bumping fists together, also dressed for battle. More than ever, Issei. Yao said, with Lifa and Sayun nodding in agreement. Yao, Lifa, and Sayun's appearances are those they normally wear in their anime. Sting's is the one he uses in the Grand Magic Games. Great, everyone to the circle. Exclaimed Issei, invoking the magic circle that would take them to the vicinity of the church. A few seconds later the group was already in the vicinity of the church, but they could not pass due to a barrier that had surrounded the building. How do we get past a barrier without being detected? Lifa asked while the rest of the girls thought of a solution. Except for Issei and Sting, who exchanged a knowing look and smile. And who said we'd get in undetected? Issei asked as Sting advanced towards the barrier. Before any of the girls could respond, a loud crack was heard in the air, caused by Sting's light-drenched fist that completely shattered the barrier. Wow. They didn't even bother to build a sturdy barrier. Sting said, sounding somewhat disappointed. Ladies first, please. The blonde man added, bowing slightly. At this, all the girls shook their heads because those two's habits would never change. You two are something else. Rossweisse said as she walked towards the church. Thank you. The two men replied in unison, taking that as a compliment. Before the group reached the door, it opened due to Rainer carrying the unconscious Asia and Kalawiner as best she could. Issei. Exclaimed the girl happily upon seeing that the boy and his group had arrived on time. So you've decided to betray us, Rainer. Shouted an angry middle-aged man, dressed in a trench coat, hat, and with black wings on his back, having let his guard down and allowed Rainer to capture both the nun and Kalawiner. You can't betray someone you never agreed with in the first place, don't you? The violet-eyed girl retorted as she left her friend and the nun on the ground. Well. If the boy you were supposed to eliminate is also here. You must be desperate if you think this little group of children can take us and a group of exiled exorcists on. Said a somewhat arrogant blonde girl with blue eyes who dressed like a gothic Lolita and also had black wings on her back. Middled. Rainer muttered through gritted teeth, since she was responsible for some of Kalawiner's injuries. Yes. Finally we have more dem. Wait a minute. These aren't demons, what a disappointment. And I wanted to kill those scum. Said a third subject with white hair and exorcist clothes, who carried a pistol and a sword made of light. Shut up, Freed, Rainer. Hand over the nun and maybe we'll let you go. Donasek said as an ultimatum while creating a spear of blue light in his hand. My answer is a definite no. Then die. Donasek roared as he charged at Rainer at great speed until someone got in his way, stopping him dead in his tracks and sending him back to his allies. Hey, I'm your enemy. Sting said with a smile as he got into position and charged his fists with light. Sayun, Lifa, Yao, Rainer faced the group of exorcists. Rossweisse, you take on the gothic Lolita. And I'll take on the madman. He ordered, earning a high from the aforementioned girls. Muahaha, it's a shame you're not a demon. Although looking at it from your side it's better, since that way I can kill you faster. It's no fun to hear a human cry muahaha. Freed laughed as he lunged at Issei with his light sword. Ice sword. Issei shouted, creating a sword made of ice in his right hand to parry the exorcist's attack. Ooh, a swordsman. I'm starting to think I'm going to enjoy your death more and more, you brat. The white-haired man exclaimed, laughing. Well. I'll defend myself with my sword. And we'll see who dies here. The boy countered. Haha, don't forget I have another weapon. The mad exorcist exclaimed happily, pointing his light gun point blank, surprising Issei for a second. Issei had to tilt his head, so the bullet only grazed a few hairs, and he jumped back to get away from Freed. Oh come on, don't run away. We've only just begun. The man exclaimed, lunging at the boy again. Judging by your outfit and the one of the guy fighting Freed. At least you two are Nordic, right? Middle asked Rossweisse, still with an arrogant smile. Well. It seems someone has noticed. Rossweisse replied, thus confirming the suspicion of the fallen blonde angel. You know. That brown-haired friend of yours is handsome. I think when I kill you I'll have fun and play with him a lot. I'm sorry to inform you that that boy is my fiancé, and besides, he likes women who are a little taller and not so flat-chested. Rossweisse said calmly as she crossed her arms, highlighting a certain attribute that the fallen angel lacked. You. Now I really intend to kill you in the most painful way, you Nordic bitch. Roared Middled, launching a pink light spear towards the platinum-haired girl, who responded to the attack with a yellow magic circle from which a beam emerged that collided with the spear, raising some smoke between the two girls. Meanwhile, the group formed by Lifa, Yao, Sayun, and Rainer were in charge of defending the unconscious Asia and Kalwerner from the rest of the exorcists in the area, with Yao and Lifa fighting at close range, while Rainer covered them with her lilac light spears and Sayun formed small water bullets. Seriously, how many exorcists were in that church? Yao asked as he counterattacked the exorcists with a pair of daggers, plunging them into the abdomen of the exorcist attacking him. I don't know, but we must keep fighting. Lifa replied, delivering a diagonal slash across another exorcist's back while dodging a vertical cut aimed at her. In the rear, Sayun and Rainer were positioned covering the blind spots of both the elf and the dark elf, although the latter was more tired after constantly summoning spear after spear. Can you continue? The blue-haired elf asked the fallen angel, who nodded slowly. Yes. It's the least I can do after getting you all into all this. Rainer replied between breaths, eliciting a small smile from the elf at her determination. Until the blue-haired elf saw too late how one of the exorcists managed to escape from Lifa and Yao and positioned himself behind Rainer. Watch out. Sayun exclaimed to the violet-eyed girl, who turned around to see an exorcist rushing towards her, now very close. She closed her eyes, waiting for the pain, a pain that did not come, so, surprised, she opened her eyes and saw the same exorcist impaled on the ground by a spear of yellow light. Stay away from her. A weak voice said beside Sayun and Rainer. It was Kalwerner, panting and on her knees. She had woken up when they were so focused on defending Lifa and Yao that they didn't see the exorcist sneak in. So with what little energy he had left, he materialized a spear of light, thus managing to knock down the enemy. Kalwerner. Cried the violet-eyed girl in relief when she saw that her friend had woken up. Rainer. What is all this? Why are so many people fighting? Why is there a blue-haired elf by your side? These and many more questions swirled in the head of the dark-haired girl. Donasik and Middled have betrayed Azazel Sama and were planning to extract the sacred gear from that girl. The violet-eyed woman informed Kalwerner, who was now turning her gaze to the blonde girl in nun's robes beside her. And I've managed to get them all to help us. I see. Then let me. The dark blue-haired girl tried to speak, only to stumble and fall to the ground again, though this time Rainer prevented her from hitting the ground. Please relax. Rainer, can you take over covering Lifa and Yao? Sayun asked, while the dark-haired girl nodded and, now with renewed strength after seeing that her best friend was feeling better, began to summon spears of light relentlessly. What are you going to do? Kalwerner asked Sayun, somewhat nervous and distrustful, although if Rainer trusted her, she could give her a chance. Don't worry, my name is Sayun and I'm going to heal you right now. The elf said calmly, as a blue aura surrounded her hands and she brought them closer to the fallen one. As she felt the elf's hands near her without touching her body, she opened her eyes, noticing that her magic was gradually being restored and a few small wounds. Healing magic? Kalwerner asked, surprised. Yes, and she also wields water magic at a good level. She replied, still with a small smile. So, what do you think about helping Rainer? The fallen elf asked, getting up to support her companion, until one of the church walls collapsed. What was that? Kalwerner asked aloud. It seems Sting has finished his fight. Sayun replied calmly. Just moments before, Sting and Donasik were exchanging glances. The fallen one was starting to get annoyed with the boy, who always managed to deflect his spears with his fists. TCH, I have to admit you're a good kid. But let's see what you do with this. Donasik exclaimed, summoning a spear 3 times the size of normal ones and throwing it at the blonde boy. Sting, for his part, decided to counter the fallen man's attack by making a laser beam of light come out of the palm of his right hand. I've got you. Exclaimed the fallen one, appearing next to Sting with a spear ready in his hand, which was aimed at the boy's face. What? Exclaimed the man in the trench coat in disbelief when he saw that the boy had enough reflexes to stop his attack. Using his mouth. For a few seconds the fallen boy and the blonde boy struggled until the spear finally broke from the pressure exerted by the boy's teeth. What the hell are you, kid? And now you're chewing on my spear. Donasik exclaimed again in disbelief as he watched the blonde boy chew on the piece of spear that remained in his mouth. Oh, what a disappointment. I thought if your light spear was blue it would taste like blueberries. Sting said, leaving the man with a bead of an I'm sweat drop. Well, I'd better finish this as soon as possible. And to answer your question. I'm Sting Eucliffe, Light Dragon Slayer. After saying that, Sting drew his right fist back, charging it with light, and launched himself at great speed toward the man who had snapped out of his daze late and was unable to dodge. Hakuryu no Tekken. Exclaimed Sting, striking Donasek in the chest with his right fist. Donasek flew towards the church wall and fell dead to the ground as the punch broke his ribs and they pierced his lungs, causing internal bleeding. Donasek. Exclaimed the fallen one known as Middlet upon seeing her companion fall defeated. Haven't they ever taught you that you shouldn't lose sight of your enemy? Middlet heard a voice to her left, so she turned around, but it was too late and she was engulfed by a great blaze. All she could do was let out a scream from the heat and pain she was enduring. As the dust settled, the fall caused severe burns, and almost her entire dress was reduced to ashes. She would not survive. That's what you get. For trying to take my boyfriend away from me. Rossweisse said, panting slightly after having summoned magic circles of attack non-stop. She saw that Sting had already finished his fight with the man in the trench coat and the rest of the girls were already finishing off the last remaining exorcists. The only one still fighting was Issei. You're good, you Nordic brat, I have to admit that, hahaha. Fried said, still with his psychopathic laugh, clashing his light sword with Issei's ice sword once again. Until he heard a scream and turned his gaze only to see that both Donasek and Middlet had fallen defeated. TCH. This is a nuisance, looks like this is my retreat. Said the white-haired man, pulling what looked like a ball of smoke from his jacket. Goodbye Viking-chan. Exclaimed Fried before throwing the ball to the ground, creating a cloud of smoke which he used to escape. Partner, you know you could have used my power to overcome him, right? Drake asked. Yes. But I also don't want to depend on you in each and every battle I have. The boy replied to the dragon within him. Interesting, of all the bearers I've had, only 2 have thought like you. I'm grateful that you see me not as a tool, but as someone. Replied the dragon. Before Issei could respond, the voices of his companions pulled him away from Drake's connection. It seems one of them has escaped after all. Sting said as he witnessed Fried manage to flee. Yes. But we accomplished what was important. Rossweisse said, seeing Kalwerner safe and sound, who was already standing and waking up. What happened? The blonde asked, still a little disoriented. Finally you're awake, Asia-san. Said Issei, kneeling beside the girl. Issei-san. Rossweisse-san. What are you doing here? And why are you dressed like that? Asia asked as she sat up from the ground. To give you a summary, we know about the supernatural world. In fact, Rossweisse and I belong to the Norse faction. The Nordic faction. So you always knew that. That you were here to join the fallen angels, yes, we already knew that, she told us. She said, pointing at Rainer. I'm sorry for my behavior towards you in Asia. But I had to pretend I would do anything to save Kalwerner. The fallen violet-eyed woman apologized. Don't worry, Rainer-san, I understand why you did it for your friend. The green-eyed girl replied, seeing the dark-haired girl's intentions. Thank you again. Asia said, thanking the whole group. That's the least you can do for a friend. Issei replied with a smile. Before the group could continue talking, a magic red circle appeared in the place. I knew it was taking them a while. After all, we really messed things up. Issei said aloud. When the light from the magic circle ceased, 4 figures appeared, 3 female and 1 male. Among the girls, one was a redeed, another had black hair, and the shortest had white hair, while the boy was blonde. These were Ria's Gremory, Akeno Himejima, Kaneko Taoju, and Kibayudo, respectively. They appeared to be wide-eyed when they saw the church almost completely destroyed and the ground burned around it. It didn't take long for them to turn their gaze towards Issei's group, so the black-haired girl, the small white-haired girl and the blonde boy got into a fighting stance, while the redeed took a few steps forward, sharpened her gaze and crossed her arms, trying to intimidate Issei and company. I am Ria's Gremory and I demand to know who you are, and I expect all of you to have a good explanation for causing this destruction in my territory. She said seriously as she gathered some of her destructive power in her hand. There's no need to be so aggressive, Gremory-san. My name is Issei Hyoudou, though you may have already seen my classmates at the academy. We're here representing the Nordic faction in Kuo, and we also want to save a friend of ours. The boy said, pointing at Asia. Although that's something you should be doing yourselves. Didn't you just say it was your territory? Actually, this land belongs to the gods of Japanese Shinto, but they've allowed demons to control it in exchange for protecting its citizens. Something you haven't done, since I've seen the murder rate keep rising. Could you explain that, Gremory-san? Issei asked, throwing the redeed's group off balance with his speech. Just when it seemed the girl was about to answer, the boy spoke again. Never mind, we'll talk about it tomorrow at your club. Jana. Issei said with a wide grin, leaving with the rest of his group and leaving the Gremory era speechless. She began to tremble with rage at having been belittled by the boy. Besides, she needed to know why the Nords were in Kuo. Once Issei's entire group arrived home, Sting was the first to speak. Did you see the look on the Riti's face? The boy asked, barely able to contain his laughter as he recalled the image. At that moment, the rest couldn't hold it in any longer and began to laugh to varying degrees, even Asia. Until certain fallen angels remembered what would happen to them after everything that had happened. Oh no. How am I going to explain all this to Azazel-sama? The violet-eyed girl asked hysterically. And how I let myself get caught up with those two. Kalawiner added. Issei looked at them with a touch of pity. After all, one of them had abandoned her post while the other had failed to stop the traitors. Therefore, she decided to recruit them into her group. This way, they would be under the protection of the Nordic faction, and she had also seen during this time that Rainer was trustworthy, so she could give her friend a chance as well. I'm not going to tell you that I already told you. Oh, wait, I just said it. Said Drake through his connection with Issei. Girls, there's a way Azazel can't do anything to you. Issei said, drawing the attention of both fallen girls, Asia, and her group. Although the latter already feared what was to come, and in truth, after the performance they showed, they could be good additions, even Rossweisse herself thought so. Are you sure, Issei? Rossweisse asked, receiving a nod from her boyfriend. Do you want to join my group, my nobility, or whatever you want to call it? Issei asked, leaving both fallen angels speechless. Why don't you offer something like that so suddenly? Kalawiner asked, as best he could. Well, if you enter, you would come under the protection of the Nordic faction, and that way Azazel wouldn't be able to punish you. Issei explained. Seeing it that way, and after everything you've done. Fine, I accept. Kalawiner said with a small smile. When Issei turned his head to see Rainer's response, he suddenly found himself in a tight embrace from the violet-eyed girl. Thank you so much for helping us, Issei. The girl said, tightening her hug. The boy felt the impact of her chest and began to get nervous, though that was more due to the dark look Rossweisse was giving him. After getting the dark-haired woman to let go, he proceeded to give a couple of pawn pieces to the girls, who were curious to know why the Nordics followed the same system of pieces as the demons. Now all that remained was to wait until tomorrow to confront Ria's Gremory. That's it guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. With that, take care.